The FBI's lying. The law enforcement's lying. And the media is covering it up. When you realize that, when you're actually watching it and you realize that it's propaganda, it's lies, it's just like everything flips. Wait, I've been lied to, I've been deceived, I've been propagandized. What the hell is going on?
This is just like me. We have a lot in common.
No, I mean, stop sending Americans to die in the Middle East. Stop spending billions and trillions of dollars in the Middle East. That's all you had to do. People have a zero tolerance on foreign policy in the Middle East. They're done. I don't believe they really care about keeping Democrats out of power, quite frankly. I don't believe them when they say, we have to do everything we can to stop the Democrats from winning. And I say, really, everything? Everything. And I say, get us out of Iran. Anything but that. How about mass deportations? Well, I don't know. How about deep state arrest? So it's like, you know, you keep reaching this wall. Do you really believe that 2 planes could be hijacked midair by people with box cutters and flown into a building?
Yeah.
You think that would happen?
I do.
Which, by the way, where are the airplane parts?
Well, they went into the ground.
Of course they did. They just disintegrated, just like the World Trade Center. And they tried to convince a judge, I need to be put in jail for a speech crime.
Yep.
And he did it.
Yeah.
And he did it. But it's the federal government, so they can do whatever the hell they want.
The prosecutor who drove Matthew Perna to hang himself still works at the DOJ. Didn't even lose his job. This will happen again.
At the very least, fired them. At the very least.
Right.
I mean, at the least.
At the Owen Shroyer is an independent political commentator and broadcaster who spent nearly a decade at InfoWars, where he became best known as the host of The War Room. Known for his confrontational style and willingness to challenge both the political establishment and his own side, Owen has emerged as one of the most outspoken voices in the growing divide between MAGA and America First. In 2023, Owen served 60 days in federal prison for a misdemeanor related to January 6th, even though he never entered the Capitol and was never accused of violence or property destruction. More recently, he made headlines after leaving InfoWars following a very public split with Alex Jones and breaking sharply with President Trump over Israel, foreign policy, and what Owen sees as the abandonment of the original America First agenda. Today, we're having an honest, in-depth conversation about his split with MAGA, January 6th, his time in prison, his personal experiences with targeted lawfare, his criticism of Trump, and where he believes the conservative movement goes from here. Nothing is off limits. How's it going?
Good. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. You're actually one of the first people, I know from the movement, because when I released my original walkaway video back in May of 2018, you had me on your show in June, so like within a month. So I've known you almost the entire time that I've been on the scene. But I realized today, as I was kind of preparing for this, I don't actually know that much about what brought you into politics and your political career. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got started?
It is funny though, reminiscing, going back,
Yeah.
and it's like, it seems like yesterday, and yet it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
When you had that first walkaway march and everything, it's like a totally different world.
That's right, you were there.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's been crazy to adjust to that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
With every election cycle, you get a little bit more experience. But, I actually come from the sports world. That's where I grew up in media. And, in high school, when you hit your junior year and you're not starting on the varsity team, you realize, okay, you're not a professional athlete, right? But I still wanted to be involved with sports. And so I knew my avenue at that time was through the media. I was already doing stuff in media, video editing. I was already the senior editor at my school paper, The Current. Actually, The Current was in college. The Tourette was in high school. And so I even me and some of my classmates started the morning news at my high school. Still runs to this day. We started that.
Wow.
So I was always doing media in high school, but it was always sports related. I wanted to be around sports. That was my expertise. That's what I wanted to do. So, okay, you're not going to be an athlete, go into media. I did pretty well. Sports media is a tough nut to crack. Even somebody that doesn't follow sports, you'll understand, Al Michaels has been on air for what? 40 years?
I'm one of these people who doesn't follow sports.
And I bet you know who Al Michaels is.
I
probably.
don't.
Joe Buck?
Nope.
Okay, well, then you're not a good example.
No.
Okay, you got nothing. The point is
Yeah.
these guys stick around forever.
Yeah,
They're on
okay.
air 30, 40, 50 years. It's probably the hardest ladder to climb is sports media. Syndicated talk show hosts, they dominate for decades. It's so hard to climb that ladder.
Got
So
it.
you kind of have to work your way through different things, TV production, sound engineering, TV trucks, remote broadcast. You kind of have to learn everything and then see what opportunity opens up for you. I was doing mostly college and high school play-by-play at the time. And then I was working for different networks when they would come into town. So like Fox, CBS, if there was a basketball game, a football game, I would do TV production for them. I would do sound engineering for visiting teams that would come play the St. Louis Cardinals, the St. Louis Blues. So I was just, I had my foot in a bunch of different doors because I knew how hard it would be to get an opportunity in sports media. And I was still kind of doing my own thing, writing, editing, video production. But I was like, okay, this is kind of a career path. And so kind of like you with sports, I didn't know much about politics. I wasn't interested in politics. You could probably count the number of hours I spent watching political news on one hand. That's how interested I was in politics. But what happened in 2012 or 13, when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, it was the first time where kind of politics, current events meshed with sports. So it was the first time in my professional broadcasting career where I kind of had to follow the news and follow a current events outside of just the raw sports matrix or, outside the line sports commentary. And so really it was almost instinctual when I first started watching whoever it was, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whoever it was, I was trying to follow the story. It was like, it was very instinctual. It was very intuitive. Like, this is fake. Like, this is literally fake. This is propaganda. Like, what am I watching here? And I can even go into some of the details. I'll never forget, like, Ed Davis, Rich DeLaurier. These are the guys that were handling the Boston Marathon bombing case. And it's kind of like anything where if you follow it from beginning to end and you have all these details, like, cataloged, it's easy to point out when there's inconsistencies or things don't add up. It's kind of like today in politics. It's like you follow everything, you can see the inconsistencies, you can see things that don't add up, and then you engage in a dialogue to try to figure out what's going on. So it was very similar with the Boston Marathon bombing. And eventually I just reached the conclusion that they're all lying. That was like the intuitive, instinctual thing. The bottom line, they're all freaking lying. The FBI's lying, the law enforcement's lying, and the media is covering it up. Now, I always assumed when people would come to me, because I know you want to talk about September 11th today, I always assumed my response was, oh, well, if that was happening, the news would cover it. If that was happening, I'd hear about it on the news. And so when you realize that, when you're actually watching it and you realize that it's propaganda, it's lies, it's just like everything flips. It's like everything went like this for me in a matter of weeks. And all of a sudden, I got so much more interested in current events and news because it was like, wait, I've been lied to, I've been deceived, I've been propagandized. What the hell is going on?
This is just like me.
We have a lot in common.
No, I mean, this, like, I'm so glad I asked you this question. Like, I didn't really, please keep going.
So it led me down the rabbit hole. It led me down the rabbit hole. And then eventually what happens is I'm 23, 24. I've been climbing the ladder in the sports media all these years, and I'm actually lucky enough to have an opportunity to have a career. But it's like I'm so curious and invested in conspiracy theories and politics now, where I take my independent stuff into the political world. So I'm still working and making money in the sports media, but my independent stuff started becoming political. So, okay, time goes on. I go through this process and we reach 2016, where now my independent political stuff is starting to catch a little steam. I wasn't in a position to make money, like pay my bills out of it, but it was like I had a little bit of a following. I'd gone viral a couple times. So it was like there was something there.
Sorry, can I ask, was this like on YouTube or you were just writing, or what were you doing?
This is back in the day. Like my two big breaks were actually World Star. Funny enough, was a couple of my videos went viral on World Star. I had some videos from the Michael Brown riots in Ferguson. People blowing stuff up, police tear gassing people. That stuff went viral. I also happened to be, this is a lesser known story, I think it was 2014. There was they ended up calling it a firework, but there was some explosive device that blew a kid. I think he ended up losing his leg in Central Park, and I just so happened to be there right when it happened. journalistic instincts kick in. I start filming, and I happen to catch these police officers leaving the scene. I wasn't even sure what was going on at that time, but I catch these police officers leaving the scene. There's a couple of, I believe it was ABC News. It wasn't on-air people. They looked like executive types. But anyway, I'm just asking them questions, doing the normal me thing. And eventually it kind of slips, and they're like, yeah, this was like a bomb. Whatever they said, it sounded like they're talking about an explosive device, not a firework. It was like, this is an explosive device. Well, I don't even know what I was capturing at the time. I'm just recording. I just happened to be on the scene. They're saying this right there in the moment. We're talking like a couple minutes later. And so then the official narrative drops hour or two later, a firework. Some kid lights off a firework. Well, I have them on camera saying it was an explosive device. So that was kind of the other thing. So I had a little bit of a following. InfoWars discovers me in 2016, offers me a job to go there and, focus on politics. And it's funny because at that time, friends and family were like, you were grinding for 10 years in the sports media. You actually have your foot in the door to have a nice career if you wanted to take it. You're crazy. You really want to blow this up for Alex Jones? Like, really? You want to go into politics?
Yeah.
And I had no doubt. I mean, it was the perfect match, and the rest is history. But yeah, I come up through the sports world, and for me, it was like, you start to lose interest, not even to get into the sports thing. Once sports becomes a profession, it loses a lot of its sheen. It becomes work. So that's kind of a painful process to go through. But if it's your career, that's just how it is. But I started to lose interest. It wasn't there anymore. I was way more curious about, what have I been lied to my whole life? What are these damn lines that are being sprayed in the sky? Why are they putting fluoride in the water? It's just like, all of this stuff clanking around. You can't get over it. You become obsessed. So it was a match made in heaven for me to go to InfoWars. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history.
Were you living in Texas already?
No, I was in St. Louis. I moved down here.
Well, so I have to ask, and I love Alex. Obviously, it's no dig on Alex, but I mean, was there no hesitation whatsoever that you're going to give up a traditional career to go move and work under Alex Jones?
I feel like I always knew it was going to happen, honestly. I feel like it was always the perfect place for me to go and do what I wanted to do. And when I first joined, it was actually funny because it was clear they were going to hire me. I was like, we're going to expand our live programming. We're going to expand live programming. And they all laughed. They're like, you're never going to do that. We're never going to be live after the Alex Jones show. Eventually we did expand, and I hosted the 3 to 6 show every day. So I always kind of felt like that was where I was going to end up if I could have the opportunity, or was offered the opportunity. And I always felt like my role was going to be to expand InfoWars live shows, and also to help build their YouTube channel in that election cycle with all of the viral content that we were generating. So there was really no doubt in my mind. The people that were just saying, hey, are you sure? I listened to them, and it was like, oh, I'll hear you out. But to me, there was no doubt.
So I think this is a good time to just go straight into September 11th. I wasn't expecting that story, but so recently you did this debate with me, which was boomers versus millennials. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because, of course, there's this huge divide right now in the conservative movement, and a big piece of that divide is the generational piece. A lot of the older people are still very firmly behind President Trump, very firmly behind MAGA, believing the Fox News narrative, believing the White House narrative on everything. And I think most people under 50 are feeling very, very differently. And we're going to really unpack that a little later. But during this debate that I did, the purpose of the debate was that I wanted to expose this. My older audience, what's so frustrating is, it's one thing if, one side feels one way and another side feels another way, and there's a stalemate, like I can live with that. The problem is the older people are saying there is no divide. What are you talking about? It doesn't exist. This is all made up. It's just Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson brainwashing everybody. So I thought, well, why don't we actually get some baby boomers in a studio? Let's get some millennials in a studio, and let's get this all out on the table, which I think we did. Now, I'm in the middle. I'm not a boomer and I'm not a millennial. So I was kind of sitting there listening to, the younger guys. I was listening to the older people. And this thing I kept hearing from your side was, to the boomers, you guys believe the official narrative of the moon landing. You guys believe the official narrative of 9/11. Now, I had a script that I wanted to stick with, but I so desperately wanted to be like, ooh, I wanted to go down this rabbit hole. So I've never really gotten to ask you, what are you talking about? Like, what do you think 9/11 was?
Well, it's hard to say what it was beside what it led to. It led to $5 trillion spent in the Middle East. It led to a bunch of different military operations in the Middle East. It led to really hundreds of thousands of people dead, including tens of thousands of Americans. And it's all part of this thing. And I think it's even connected to what's going on in the Middle East today. I think there was an agenda to reshape, reform the Middle East. You know, maybe you can get directional with it. Is it to benefit Israel? Is it to benefit America? Is there something else going on? But I feel like that's really what it's all been. And I do feel like it's all connected. I think that I don't know if you could say it started at September 11th, but I think that that was the big one. It's like, okay, September 11th, now we're going to have this permanent footprint in the Middle East. We're going to stay there forever. And then whatever other regime change wars or skirmishes we need to get in, we're already in a battle position with all the different bases and stuff that we have the experience to go in and do whatever it is, say we're trying to do in Iran right now. It's like, okay, we're already in the Middle East. We've got the experience. We've got the footprint. Just go ahead and do it. We don't have to start a new war because it's all been the same war since September 11th. So, I mean, you can get into the things that, to me, why I don't believe the official narrative. But I think that as far as what happened, I think that we were lied to about what happened. I think they needed to drum up support for another war in the Middle East. You know, I was younger at the time, but I suspect now that there was a similar thing happening where younger Americans were sick of all the foreign entanglements. That, you know, Vietnam, the Korean War, the Gulf War, you name it. There was always kind of a question, right? There was always a question of, were we doing the right thing? Was it a mistake to do these things? So you kind of had that hesitation. Well, what do? You have 9/11, all that hesitation is gone. You've got the patriotic songs, you've got the different things happening at the ball games. And now all of a sudden everybody's gung-ho. Let's go back into the Middle East. Let's get the terrorists. The war's been going on for nearly a quarter century now. So that's what I think. That's how I think our foreign policy operates. That's what I think the entire thing was really about. As far as who done it or what actually happened, I don't know. I think that these are the great questions, but I certainly don't trust our government then or now to tell us the truth.
Okay, so when you say, you know, the official narrative of 9/11 and you express criticism in that, do you believe that planes hit the towers?
Probably, yeah. I'm not there's the hologram theory that people think it was a hologram. No, I probably don't believe that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to believe.
Do you think they were hijacked by Middle Eastern terrorists?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I really don't know. The whole thing seems very implausible.
Are you against the narrative?
I think if I'm going to find a hill to die on with 9/11, I think it has to be the controlled demolition. It has to be the implosion on its footprint, like a controlled demolition. I think it's Building 7 that they went on air and said they pulled Building 7 while it was still up, by the way. It was still standing in the background. And they said, oh, Building 7 has collapsed. It was still up. And then they said, oh, they pulled Building 7. So that sounds like a controlled demolition. And there's all other kinds of stuff that's weird around these things. But to me, that's the smoking gun. It looks like a controlled demolition. If it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Looks like a controlled demolition. Fell like a controlled demolition. They even had a third one with Building 7. To me, that's the most obvious. All structural engineers have analyzed this. Plus, they found nanothermite on the scene. That's an explosive device. You don't find that in airplanes. The amount of nanothermite that they found would insinuate that there was a controlled demolition that day. So that's like the most obvious one. As far as what blew it up, was it the jet fuel? Was it a plane? The hologram theory, were there hijackers? Could it have been somebody operating it remotely? I don't know if we'll ever know any of these things. It's hard to say. But to me, anybody can look at the buildings and say, that's a controlled demolition. Anybody can look at Building 7 that didn't get hit with anything and say, that's a controlled demolition. And if you go and you look at the record from that day, firefighters, police officers, people that were on the scene, they all said the same thing. They heard explosions. They heard what sounded like a controlled demolition. This is all over the airwaves that day, but it just kind of gets buried in history.
Well, I struggle with most conspiracy theories, and I definitely struggle with most of the conspiracy theories I've heard around 9/11, just because you went through January 6th, I went through January 6th. I think neither of us would not argue that the government is corrupt. I don't know if I said that correctly. We would definitely argue that the government is corrupt, and that they're capable of lying and propagandizing. but they're also incredibly stupid and inept. And I mean, to pull off something like that, I don't know how you fill a building full of explosives. Nobody sees, nobody witnesses anything like this happen. You're laughing. What do you think?
Well, maybe people did witness things. There's definitely weird stuff there. The connections to the Bush security teams. There were also foreign students that were doing art projects there the entire time, bringing in boxes filled with art. Nobody really knows what happened to them. They kind of disappeared. And then there's the Larry Silverstein insurance plan. And he basically double tapped on insurance like he bet that the towers were going to come down. If you want to go really deep, why did Howard Lutnick decide not to go to the building that one day of all the days he works at the World Trade Center? One day he decides not to go in. Pretty amazing coincidence, huh?
Yeah. Well, so for you, it's mostly, so you don't have like a specific theory. You don't have a specific, like, this is exactly what it was. You just question, were we lied to? Is it what we've been told it is?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so clearly a controlled demolition to me. I don't believe for 1 second that planes.
So you feel pretty firm about that?
Yeah, that's the hill I would die on. I think everything else is very open for interpretation. And I guess really the counter question would be, you know, if you're questioning somebody like me that doesn't believe it and you say, well, do you believe this? Do you believe that? Well, I guess I would ask, do you really believe that 2 planes could be hijacked midair by people with box cutters and flown into a building?
Yeah.
You think that would happen?
I do.
If you were on a plane and somebody was waving around a box cutter and said, we're going to take this plane and run into a building, you don't think 100 people?
Well, I don't think they said we're going to run into a building. You know, and you have to remember 9/11 hadn't happened yet. Before that, hijackings usually ended in the planes being landed and some sort of ransom being paid.
You don't think people would have stood up on that plane and taken that person out?
Well, they did on, what was it, Flight 92, what was the one in Pennsylvania?
I don't remember, but yeah, the Pennsylvania one, which by the way, where are the airplane parts?
Well, they went into the ground.
Of course they did. They just disintegrated, just like the World Trade Center. What about have you seen the Pentagon footage?
Yeah, oh yeah, the 3 stills. Or
where's
maybe
the
2
airplane?
stills.
Where's the airplane?
Yeah.
Where are the jet engine parts?
Yeah.
Again, it's like I don't even, you know, when you have these conversations, there's like an imposition. Like I'm not trying to convince you, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm not even trying to impose what I think. I'm just saying, hold on a second. Do you see an airplane here? I don't. Before Trump finished speaking, some Secret Service people came over to us and they grabbed Alex and they said,
Do you deny that planes were hijacked and crashed?
Like I said, it's like controlled demolition. That's the hill I'll die on. There's other weird stuff that went on that's undeniable. So they were about to cut me loose. Somebody says, you're going to arrest him. They end up arresting me, detaining me that day. It was like a red smoke flare. And one of our DC guys said, hey, that means somebody just got shot.
Patriots, this month the Walkaway campaign turns 8 years old, and in the last 8 years, we have gotten more than 1 million people to join us in the Walkaway movement. Over 100,000 people have submitted their written and video testimonials sharing their stories about why they're walking away from the divisive anti-American Democrat Party. But we're just getting started. We're going to continue crossing the country from coast to coast, going into college campuses, talking to impressionable young people, talking to Black voters, Hispanic voters, LGBT people, Jewish people, and all Americans who have ever been indoctrinated by the divisive Marxist Democrat Party. We're going to wake up and liberate everybody and get everyone to walk away, but we need your help. If you support the work that we do, please go to walkawaycampaign.com, click donate, and if you can't make a monthly recurring donation, please give one time. But if you're able to, please become a monthly recurring supporter. Even $1 a month helps drive our mission forward. So please help if you can. Go to walkawaycampaign.com and please donate.
How can they claim how does a Boeing 747 go into the Pentagon and it's not on video?
Well, that is an interesting question. We actually just did a conspiracy debate this last weekend. Alex Stein was there and he was popping off about September 11th. And that was certainly one of the points he made, you know, the Pentagon being one of the allegedly the most secure building in the country, but like no one has footage of this.
But that's what like I would be willing to sacrifice. Maybe people did hijack it and fly it into a building. Maybe they were part of some larger operation. Maybe they knew, maybe they didn't. I mean, they trained in America. They trained on American bases. They were well known to law enforcement. It's not like they were secret people here training secretly. They were everybody knew they were here.
Yeah.
So it's like I could be convinced of this stuff, but I don't think I could be convinced that we weren't lied to about it. I don't think I could be convinced to believe that it happened as we were told And because of this is the reality, and now we have to go into the Middle East.
Okay, but like when you bring, and I don't want to make this like a whole 9/11 debate, but I'm just curious. Like, so okay, when you talk about like, could hijackers have hijacked a plane with box cutters and whatever? So again, the question becomes: do you deny that planes were hijacked and crashed? It's an important question because otherwise, what happened to those people?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm more of I don't know. I'm not going to fight it and say, oh no, there were no planes. And there are people that will. There are people that believe there were holograms. There were people that think there were missiles attached to the bottom of the plane, and there's some weird images of that. I'm not convinced. To me, that's all very open for interpretation. Fair questions can be asked. That's not really the hill I die on. Like I said, it's like controlled demolition. That's the hill I'll die on. There's other weird stuff that went on that's undeniable. Building 7, no plane hit the Pentagon. Maybe even airplane parts disintegrating into dust in Pennsylvania is believable. Maybe I'd even sacrifice that. But there's way too many things that just don't add up, don't make sense for me to believe the official narrative.
Well, I appreciate knowing where you stand on that because, like I said, during that Boomers debate, it got brought up several times, and I was like, "What? Well, what does he think about 9/11?" January 6th. So. This is kind of funny. Don't take this the wrong way. But when I was thinking about the questions I wanted to ask you and what I wanted to talk to you about, I actually forgot about January. You went through January 6th. I went through January 6th. I mean, you actually went to federal prison for several months. The reason why I forgot about it is, this is the reason why I want to bring this up. I feel like you may feel very differently, so please don't be offended. But like, I feel like January 6th didn't really stick to you. Like, I know you had a really hard time and you went through a lot of stuff, but like, I don't think that people think of you as a J6er. Am I wrong about that? Like, I feel like you just kind of moved on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be fair. Maybe the difference would be it's like every day before I went in, I was on air. Every day after I got out, I was on air. So it's kind of like it wasn't ever really my personality. It was just like a thing that happened to me. Whereas a lot of other January 6ers were
it became my narrative.
They were just Americans, right? They were just Americans that were there. I just happened to have a high profile, be in the media. It's kind of was just part of my job to be there, even as a journalist.
Yeah.
So I think that it was more like in rhythm for my life, if you will. So maybe that's why it didn't really stick to me.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I've never had it said like that, but yeah, I guess that is kind of true. People do kind of not look at me or even think that I was in prison for January 6th.
And even when I've like Googled you or looked at news stories and stuff, it's rarely mentioned. And it's really weird and maybe it's because I made so much noise about my case and stuff, but like it still sticks to me to this day. Like if the media does any stories about me, it's Brandon Straka, who was arrested for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, even though just like you, I didn't even go inside the building. But it is very, very much attached to me. And it's weird because it doesn't seem to really get brought up much with you. And you also don't bring it up very much, which I think is
well, you know what? There was a bit of a creative behind that because I wouldn't talk about it much, but the times I would talk about it, Alex didn't like it. I think that he felt like... And he might have been right about this, but he was my boss, and he was like, "Hey, you need to be covering news every day. Don't talk about January 6th every day. Don't talk about your case every day." So I listened to that. I took it hard. I think I probably even tried to avoid it. Maybe after that, it was like, okay, his message is being sent. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about your case. So I said, okay, message heard. So maybe that has something to do with it because I was just not even talking about it much on air because, that's what my boss was saying. Hey, you're on my airwaves. Let's not make it January 6th all day long. So maybe that has something to do with it. But, I think also for me, it's like that's just kind of how I walk through things. It's just like I just take things in stride.
That's
and it's
my
just
impression.
It's just like keep going forward. Don't look back. Keep going forward. And just take it all in stride.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's my impression too. When I look at you and like, even now you're kind of, I think you're very much a maverick and sort of a renegade in this whole MAGA divide that's happening now, because you were one of the very first people to speak out about it. And I think you've become one of the leading voices in calling out the administration now, whether people agree or disagree. But it is true that a lot of people are feeling disenfranchised and feeling like they didn't get what they voted for. And you've been on the front lines of that. But let's start with J6, though, if you don't mind. I do want to kind of go back because I want to ask, what did you actually do that day and why did you get charged?
Well, it's interesting when we look back on it, there were things that happened that I even start to question now. I don't lose sleep over it. But for example, so we're at the ellipse that day for Trump's speech. And I think we're in we're in the second row. I mean, people kind of forget, we were considered MAGA royalty at that time. I mean, InfoWars was MAGA royalty. I mean, we had a chest full of, accolades. So we were in the second row, and there was always kind of an unwritten plan that in some way, shape, or form, we were going to lead a march to the Capitol, or we were going to be a part of some march. And at the time, the interpretation was Trump was going to lead it. And I don't know, some people don't really talk about this, but the concept was Trump was going to lead the march. And Trump was going to essentially lead this million-man march to the Capitol to stand up against the stolen election. Well, I think that all the timing got mixed up. And then for us, what happened was before Trump finished speaking, some Secret Service people came over to us and they grabbed Alex and they said, okay, are you guys ready to lead the march? We want you to lead the march. Now, Alex is obviously the lead at this time, so I'm following his lead. We have a relatively big group, probably. I couldn't even say the numbers. We had a pretty big group, so we had to herd everybody together and say, all right, we're going to go lead this march. Everybody's got to go to the bathroom. All right, now people got to go to the bathroom. All right, now we're all okay, getting heads. All right, do we have everybody here? Okay, and so this whole process from the Secret Service agent saying, okay, are you guys ready? Trump wants you to lead the march or whatever. Okay, everybody goes to the bathroom. We regather. And then we're standing there. We're about to lead the march. And now me and Alex are kind of having a debate. It's a good debate. It wasn't like nasty, but we were kind of, we were going at it a little bit. And I was saying, I wanted to wait. I said, Alex, let's wait for Trump. I said, let's wait for Trump to finish speaking and then let's do the march. And he was like, no, we got to get there now. We got to get there now. We got to go. And so we were kind of tangoing with this for about 5-10 minutes. Should we go? Should we not? Should we wait for Trump? And we kind of met in the middle. And Alex said, okay, well, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do a speech. And we'll just start to gather the crowd then, and we'll see if we can wait for Trump. So that was kind of the decision that was made. So Alex goes over here. He finds this raised platform. He does Alex Jones, does his speech.
This is just on the route to the Capitol?
Yeah, right at the beginning route, right behind the ellipse, and straight away to the Capitol. So Alex gets up there. He's doing a speech. He's trying to get people gathered up to start this march. And so after this goes on for maybe 10, 15 minutes, it's like, okay, we're not going to wait for Trump anymore. We got all these people here. Let's just go. So I would say between the Secret Service trying to get us to lead the march and then us actually starting the march, probably 30 minutes to an hour at least. Now, what makes me so skeptical in the aftermath of this, and I did the time, if we would have left right when the Secret Service was telling us to leave, we would have been walking up to the Capitol right when it was breached. And of course, you know what the narrative is going to be if that happens. Mm-hmm. If Alex Jones walks up to the Capitol and all of a sudden there's a breach of the gates.
He had the blueprints. He planned
it's
the whole
Alex
thing.
Jones.
Yeah.
It's his fault. He did this, of course, right? But that's not what happened because of our little delay there, going to the bathroom, figuring out what we wanted to do. We arrived an hour late. And everything was already breached. By the time we got there, it was already breached. All the gates were down. The skirmishes were already going on. The flashbangs were already going off. The smoke grenades were already going off. So that was all said and done by the time we got there.
Did you witness that?
We were approaching it and we could hear it. Like we were right there when it really started to pop off. And that's kind of when the attitude changed. And so all of a sudden it went from leading this march to stop the steal, and all of a sudden it went into, we have to stop people now. Yeah. And it, like for Alex, it was just like that. Again, I'm following Alex's lead. If I feel like I want to interject something or ask him something, like, we have a good relationship. I'll like, hey Alex, I think we should wait. Okay, we talk it out, whatever. But he goes into this mode immediately and he's like, okay, we got to stop now. We got to stop here. We got to stop people from going in. We got to warn them, don't go in. We got to tell them it's a trap. So he goes into this mode instantaneously. And then there's those viral videos of us standing on these stacks of chairs and it's me waving, and they lie in court. They're like, look, he's waving people into the Capitol. I'm waving people away from the Capitol. I'm like, get away. Like that's what the waving motion is. So of course they lie about that, anything, how they do.
Yep.
So all of that went down. Really, at that time, it was probably too late. It was like there was really nothing we could do. But Alex, he knew it. He was like, this is going to be used against us. Like everything was instinctual. He's like, this is going to be used against us. We got to stop this. This is going to screw everything up. So he, at that moment, instead of saying it's time to bail, he said, all right, let's go to the other side of the building and see if we can't stop people from doing it. Now, at this time, our security detail has former police, former DC police, highest level military operations. And they're like, hey, let's see if we can't work with the law enforcement here and see if we can help them out. Like, hey, can you put us somewhere where Alex can tell him not to go in? Is there anything we can do to stop these crowds from going in? And mostly the police were kind of either indifferent or like aloof to the whole thing. It was kind of weird. They were just kind of standing there like, even they were like, I don't know what's going on, man. You guys do whatever. I don't know. And then eventually somebody is like, okay, why don't you go to these steps over here and tell people not to come in? And so eventually that's where we ended up. Alex on the bullhorn telling people not to go in. It was too late. It was all said and done by then. So that effort.
Can I clarify something? So you started, I'm assuming, on the west side of the building and ended up on the east side. Do you know the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the west side, just for people so they know, where the riot happened, there's a lot of violence. That's where things started.
Like where the inauguration stage was.
Right, exactly right. And then on the east side, really that wasn't going on much at all.
No, the east side was actually kind of just a big party, actually.
Right, exactly.
It was like there were a bunch of people playing music and stuff going on.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, really it was a lost cause. It was a lost cause, but Alex he saw how it was going to be used against us, so he tried to do everything. We realized it was a lost cause. We said, all right, it's just time to get out of here. Let's just go. In fact, I think the exact moment was somebody threw up, I think it was a red flare. It was like a red smoke flare. And one of our DC guys said, hey, that means somebody just got shot. They said, that's the sign somebody just got shot. Oh, so wow. That was it. It was for
Ashley
us.
Babbitt?
Yeah. Well, we assume. Okay. But the timing was like, okay, the red smoke flare went up. Our DC guy said, hey guys, somebody just got shot. That's what that means. And that's when we said, okay, it's time to go. All right, this is too bad. So we got out of there. We went up to this rooftop building we had access to, started filing reports again. Same thing, like this is going to be used against us. We got set up, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, just get out of town as quick as possible. It was kind of how that all went down.
Do you know roughly what time you were there?
No. I mean, I used to when we were going through the cases, because we were like looking at timestamps and trying to figure out when we got here, when the breaches were. I want to say the whole thing went down like between 11 and 1, I think, 11 and 2.
Well, that would have been really early though, because I think Trump, I don't remember either. I just know I arrived at the Capitol around 2:20, and I was curious if you were there. You must have been there before I was, or shortly before.
I don't, you know what? I don't remember the time.
Yeah. So why'd you get arrested?
Well,
what were you accused of?
So this is a very complex thing, okay. And most people don't know this, but basically, and it's all bullshit, really. But I had a previous charge for disruption of Congress. In December of 2019, Jerry Nadler was chairing an impeachment hearing, and I stood up and I said, Trump is innocent. The Democrats are committing treason. We voted for Trump. You guys are trying to overthrow the country. I did a little spiel, lasted about 60 seconds. And, they just escorted me out. There was no resistance, no struggle. The cops were nice enough. They just escorted me out. And I know enough about DC to know how they normally operate, which is as long as you don't resist arrest and, cause a big scene, put anybody's life in danger, they're probably just going to, get out here, just shoo. And that's what it was. It was less than 60 seconds. I disrupted the Trump impeachment hearing. So the cops bring me around. They stand me outside there. And he's like, all right. He's like, hey, hold on a second. And he waits for this guy. He says, hey, will you escort him out of the building? They don't cuff me, nothing. He's like, yeah, we'll escort him out. He doesn't even grab me. After we get out of the hearing room, they don't even touch me anymore. They just stand me there. They're not even worried about me. So he's like, all right. So this guy comes, escorts me out. He's like, all right, you can't come back in the building today. That was it. I'm starting to leave. I'm about to step off. And one of the cops goes, wait, hold right there. Grabs his ear, whatever. Somebody gets in his ear and says, you're going to arrest him. Somebody gets in his ear right then and there and says, you're going to arrest him right now. So they were about to cut me loose. Somebody says, you're going to arrest him. They end up arresting me, detaining me that day. I spent a couple hours in jail, and they end up releasing me, whatever the technical term is on reconnaissance, whatever. So they released me that day. Now I have a charge for disruption of Congress, whatever else it is. I actually ended up getting arrested again in January of 2020. I spent 36 hours in jail for standing in the Capitol with a piece of tape over my mouth. The judge ended up tossing that, but they bring all of this back up for January 6th. And they say, oh, well, you know, you have this pattern of behavior, you have this charge. And so they try to lump in the December 2019 charge, and they say, you're in violation of probation. But the truth is, I completed my probation, I completed my community service hours, I completed my time. It was all done. They never processed the paperwork because of COVID. So
Oh, wow.
I did my community service. I completed, I think it was a year of probation, no arrests, all the other stipulations that they had in there. I completed my probation. They never processed the paperwork because of COVID. Okay. So January 6th happened, and the feds look at this and they say, oh, well, you've got this prior charge. And then they lie and they say, you are not allowed to be on the Capitol grounds. Total lie. 100% lie. Anybody can read my deferred deposition statement from December of 2019, and they can say, they can read it. I was not banned from the Capitol. In fact, the U.S. attorneys tried to ban me from Washington, D.C. in the first courtroom. They tried to ban me from D.C. They said, you can't even come to D.C. The judge said, this is insane. I have never heard anything like this. So the prosecutor requests a new judge. Okay, gets in front of a second judge. Now they want to ban me from the Capitol. The second judge says, this is unreal. I've never heard of such a case. It's literally never happened before. If you're a repeat offender, they might book you for disruption of Congress. How many times have you seen people disrupt Congress?
Numerous, especially if they're on the left.
They never get arrested.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Now, they might get a citation depending on how it goes down. They never get arrested. Okay? So I end up getting arrested. So the second judge says, I'm not banning him from the Capitol. This is outrageous. What are you talking about? U.S. attorney requests a new judge. So now we get in front of a third judge, and this judge meets him in the middle and says, look, we're not banning him from D.C. We're not banning him from the Capitol. But if he goes into the Capitol and disrupts another hearing, if he goes into the Capitol and engages in disruptive behavior, that will be a violation.
Was this during Obama?
No, this is all during Trump.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is all during Trump.
Okay.
So what they claimed is that on January 6th, because I violated this probation, which I already completed probation, and I didn't violate it, they said, oh, this is our hook. So they said, oh, now we've got you for January 6th. And then, again, something that has never been seen or heard of before, the local jurisdiction just passed it to the feds and said, oh, this is your case now. And so then the feds prosecuted me for January 6th. They had 3 charges. We ended up getting a misdemeanor trespassing charge. I forget the exact one. Misdemeanor. They put me in federal prison. Never heard of anybody with a misdemeanor in a federal prison before. Another first for me, you know, put another feather in my cap. So that's how it all goes down. So I was there as a journalist, like many other people, including the people I was with. None of them got arrested. None of the other journalists got arrested. I guess maybe you would be the only other case of a journalist getting arrested, actually. Yeah. And they said, oh, well, since they had no reasonable cause to arrest me, I didn't touch a police officer, I didn't do anything. Their reasonable cause was you violated probation. The probation was over and I didn't violate it. That's how they got me for January 6th. And then the crazy thing is you know, you get into these courtrooms, the whole thing is rigged. Yeah. It's actually one of the saddest experiences because you realize you're in the courtroom, it's a triangle of power. You have the judge that wants to imprison you to fill the prisons. You have the prosecuting attorneys that want to convict you to keep their conviction rate high. And then there's you with no chance. Right. None. Yep. Not even a shot. Yep. And you just have to sit there and take it. And there's nothing you can do. And the prosecutors get up there and they lie about you. They lie about your case. The judge doesn't know any better. No skepticism. The judge has no skepticism. Of course not. No, these prosecutors would never lie. But here's what's the most shocking of it all. So they literally took things I said on my show and they tried to convince a judge I need to be put in jail for a speech crime. Yep. And he did it. Yeah. And he did it. Like at every level, it's so corrupt. You wonder if you can even get a fair trial in this country. And quite frankly, this is how they defame you. But it's the federal government. So they can do whatever the hell they want.
Did you feel like any narrative was created around you that you were an informant or a snitch or anything like that?
Have every phone, have every email, have every video. Like you guys can have it all. Find it. You will find nothing.
Did you guys know that you can support Walkaway by going to our shop and getting some incredible merch and swag so that you can wear proudly your message that you support the Walkaway movement? Well, whether you want a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, hats, backpacks, coffee mugs, phone cases, there's just about nothing that you can't find on our shop that has really great messaging that you'll feel proud to wear out in public to show that you support Walkaway. So please go to walkaway.shop. Any purchase that you make, 100% goes to support the movement. So again, your purchasing of a shirt, hat, or anything for Walkaway is a donation to the movement that helps us drive our mission to reach as many people on the left as we can, to wake them up and get them to walk away. This is what helps us get into college campuses, do marches, rallies, town halls, and debates all over the country. So get your Walkaway swag, shirts, hats, everything you can imagine at walkaway.shop. Wear it proudly and help support the movement. Again, that's walkaway.shop.
If you go read my sentencing documents and the charging documents, there is more information about things that I said on my show than anything I did on January 6th. I think the final document ended up being 21 pages, and 16 of the pages, at least, were all about things I said on my show. Had nothing to do with January 6th. They cited me talking about Joe Biden having videos with little kids, groping them, sniffing them. That was in my charging documents. They cited videos of me talking about Joe Biden's emails and collaborating with the Chinese Communist pay-for-play stuff. So they literally took things I said on my show and they tried to convince a judge I need to be put in jail for a speech crime. Yep. And he did it.
Yeah.
And he did it. And so it's really frustrating when I hear the people talking about the January 6th stuff, and I don't blame them. How could you know all this information, right? Unless you follow every detail of my life, you're not going to know this stuff. But it's like, oh yeah, January 6th, you violated your probation. No, I didn't. January 6th, you went in the Capitol. No, I didn't. January 6th, you touched a police officer. No, I didn't. And it's just all of this stuff. And this is how they character assassinate you. And quite frankly, this is how they defame you. But it's the federal government. So they can do whatever the hell they want.
Well, another thing that you and I have in common, besides the fact that we didn't enter the Capitol, we were outside on the steps, no violence, no destruction of property, nothing like that. I read in your case, just like mine, that we were accused of standing on the steps and chanting USA. Wasn't that one of your things?
They chanted
your
me,
dirty deeds.
I chanted USA. I chanted 1776.
That's right. That's right.
Then they took when Alex was doing the original bullhorn before we started marching. They even found a clip of me saying death to tyrants, and they put that in there because I chanted death to tyrants, which, by the way, is the official flag of Virginia. It says death to tyrants.
Right.
But that's apparently criminal speech when I say it.
Yeah. Well, it just like they would take any, like the idea that in the United States of America, participating in a USA chant is perceived as like some precursor to terrorism.
It's almost like DC isn't USA.
Yeah. It's
they took that personally.
Yeah, exactly. It's very crazy. And I identify too with what you were saying about they went through my social media and they found a post I had put out leading up to January 6th. I mean, it was like a month or two before January 6th. And I said something about make your peace right now with the fact that we're in a civil war. I said, we didn't want it and we didn't ask for it. Like, nonetheless, it's here, blah, blah, blah. And there was no call to action. I mean, it was literally just make your peace right now with the fact that we're in a civil war. And the Washington Post or USA Today, I can't remember, their headline was, January 6th insurrectionist calls for civil war. Calls for civil war.
And insurrectionist too. Yeah. Like, just throw it all in there.
Yeah. And I actually filed several defamation cases against the media for, calling us insurrectionists and things like that. And I lost. I mean, they were all tossed out of court by the federal judges because they said, well, it was an insurrection. And, well, you were a part of it. And, well, it was the worst thing that ever happened in American history. And
all rigged.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a period of time where the world lost its mind. But, okay, so I want to ask you, you did take a plea deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have, because, and I'm only asking you this because you are, one of the biggest named people that was arrested and went through this. And I believe, like me, like Simone Gold, like a number of other people that were high profile, it was done to us, I think, intentionally to try to destroy our names, our reputations, and to try
to make
an
example.
Yes. And but also to eliminate us, I think, to make people lose trust in us, lose faith in us, and to make us radioactive and toxic. So did you feel like any narrative was created around you that you were an informant or a snitch or anything like that? Because that's what the plea deals, one of the conditions of the plea deal, just for people who don't know, is that you have to interview with the government. Everyone who took a plea deal, which was the majority of people, had to do that. But for those of us who were high profile, they said, oh, they sat down and talked to the government so that they could get a plea deal. And it's like, well, everyone did. And there was really nothing to tell. Did you get any of that?
It was very light. It wasn't enough that it was like, I don't think people really think I'm a snitch or anything like that. I don't know. There's always going to be people that are going to say crazy things, but I think that
there was nothing to snitch about. Either.
And I think that that's the real story here. And I think there were all kinds of angles. I think the one that you just highlighted, it's like, let's do reputational damage to these people. Maybe let's intimidate these people. Let's see if we can't get them out of the media by doing this. I mean, your big crime was defeating the Democrat Party. I mean, that was your big crime at the time, is you just caused the Democrats, how many votes? Hundreds of thousands? Yeah. So, I mean, that was your big crime. And then my big crime was I stood up at the hearing and I said, fuck you. You guys commit treason. Oh, no. They had to make an example. So they had to make an example of you because you cost Democrats an election. And they had to make an example of me because I stepped right up to our politicians and said, you're committing treason against this country.
Right.
So they had to make an example of us. But I think that, whatever the original thrust behind charging us was, I think there were all kinds of also ulterior motives. For example, I think they wanted access to all of my electronic equipment because they wanted to see who else they could find.
Yes.
They wanted to see if there was anything from Alex or Roger Stone or anything like that. And of course there wasn't. So, I understand not trusting anybody. I totally get that. I don't hold it against people if they want to be skeptical of me and skeptical of whatever I was involved in on January 6th. But, my follow-up now is like, hey, hold on a second. The reason why I turned over everything is because there was nothing to hide.
Right.
That was like my big thing, is like, have it all. Have every phone, have every email, have every video. Like, you guys can have it all. Find it. You will find nothing. Now, I will say what's frustrating in the aftermath now, I never really got too much accusation about, being a snitch or cooperating with the feds or anything like that. That was a nothing burger. I will say what's frustrating now is, claims because I'm not loyal to Trump, like, oh, you're paid by this or you're paid by that or you're for this and you're for that. And it's all BS. And I always invite people and I say the same thing. I will bet my every penny I have, and I will give you access to every bank account. And if you find anything, you can have every dollar. You can have every penny I have right now. If you find anything that would indicate I'm a foreign this, agent that, anything, have it all. And all I ask is half of yours. So I'll put up my full bank account's net worth. I just want half of yours. But go ahead. Nobody ever takes the offer. But what's frustrating, and I don't know if you had this level of probation too, I was audited. I've had the IRS in my bank accounts. I know you want to talk about lawfare. I've had lawyers that want to destroy my life. They've had access to all my bank accounts. I've had the feds in my bank accounts. So let's see here. Lawyers that want to destroy my life, feds that want to destroy my life, both have had full access to my bank accounts and they found nothing. Yeah. Okay. If the people that want to destroy my life can't find anything, it's kind of like there's nothing there. Yeah. Another one is, and this is kind of maybe Alex is doing by making false accusations about me, but they say, oh, you're on drugs. Dude, I got randomly drug tested for 5 years. For 5 years, the feds were randomly drug testing me. I didn't fail a single one. Believe me, you would have heard about it. I would have been in prison. Yeah. Didn't fail a single one. So it's like, it's almost kind of a strange blessing at the end of it. It's like, bro, they've scraped me clean. Yeah. I'm like as clean as it gets. Yes. No drugs, no financial crimes, nothing. And it's like, now I have to sit here and deal with these accusations, even though the feds can't even catch me doing it.
So speaking of lawfare and being targeted, I want to talk about the Alex Jones defamation case, because I believe to this day, isn't it like the largest civil judgment that's ever absolutely insane? And did you have to testify in that?
I did have to testify. They didn't like me. They got me off of that stand as quickly as possible. I think I embarrassed their lawyer a little bit a couple times. What's crazy about that is, and you probably experienced this too, when there's like a high profile lawsuit, somebody sues you or whatever, it's like chum in the water, and all of a sudden everybody thinks they can sue you. Mm-hmm. And so when this was happening, a bunch of frivolous lawsuits started coming my way. Most of them judges just ended up tossing. They were so bad that judges were just like, I'm not even reading this. This is ridiculous. And then it kind of catches on and the judges are like, oh, you're just like a bait for this stuff. They don't even read them anymore. But what the motivation factor at that time when I was testifying in that case was, all of these lawyers thought I had a bunch of money. They thought that I had millions of dollars like Alex. And so it was like, hey, let's get into his pocketbook too. Let's get all their money. And so what I found, what happened at that time is after we went through financial discovery and they figured out I don't have millions of dollars, they all dropped the lawsuits. All of a sudden they didn't want to sue me anymore when they realized
Not
I don't,
worth it.
yeah, when I realized I don't have a bunch of money. So it's strange how this stuff works, but it's like with every experience you realize it's so corrupt. It's so corrupt. Like at every level, it's so corrupt. You wonder if you can even get a fair trial in this country.
The plaintiffs in that case were the parents, right?
There were parents. I think there might have been an FBI agent as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But you have to understand too, I wasn't at InfoWars when any of this happened. I wasn't working at
okay.
InfoWars. I was like, I got brought in 2016 after all of this. And the only reason they brought me in is because I read a Washington Post story on air. So I was quoting a Washington Post story, and that was their hook to bring me in, even though I wasn't there. I never did anything defamatory.
Yeah.
But it was like once they figured out there's no money, they said, yeah, there's no case here. But I was still going to be a witness that they were going to try to grill.
Well, you said, it's so corrupt and you see how it's so corrupt. And I guess I was wondering, like, was it your feeling or your perception that if in fact the parents were plaintiffs, which I think you said they were they really motivating the case or were they being used? Was there something else behind it? Pushing it?
That's tough. It is tough. I don't want to talk about that case, but what I will say is I believe that there are lawyers that are seeking out plaintiffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe. I can't say much about that right now.
Okay.
Maybe in the future, but I believe, yes. I believe there are lawyers that are seeking out plaintiffs and they call, which is illegal, by the way. And I guess I'll just say this maybe as a little breadcrumb. Elon Musk was sued by the same people. And when Musk was being deposed, that's what he said. He said, no, I believe you found the plaintiff. I believe you are the one that sued me. I don't think this plaintiff even knows anything. I don't think this plaintiff knows about me, who I am, or anything about this case. I think you did this. So it seems like maybe this attorney has a reputation of that. And if you look at some of the cases, maybe that would lead you to conclude that. I'm actually in ongoing litigation, so I have to be very careful what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
But no, I do believe that happens. I do believe that happens out there, whether it's to me or not. I do think that there are lawyers, they call them ambulance chasers. That's kind of the cliche you get. But yeah, I think there are lawyers that are out there looking for a plaintiff, and then they say, hey, I'll sue for you and we'll make a bunch of money. And the plaintiff says, well, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Well, first of all, I know for a fact it happens because I can give you an example. But second of all, you just said ambulance chaser. I mean, that's the nicest possible version of it. I mean, an ambulance chaser is really someone like, oh, someone's had an accident. Let's go get a payday from a big corporation. What we're talking about is really politically targeted lawfare and destruction. When I got arrested for January 6th, one of the things that they forced me to say that I did, which I didn't do, I shouldn't say forced, but one of the conditions of me taking a plea deal was that I had to say that I witnessed the crowd taking a shield from an officer and that I shouted, take it, to encourage the crowd, which absolutely did not happen. Now, I was devastated enough by having to take ownership of something that I didn't do. I thought that in itself was like gut-wrenching enough. Little did I know, because I was so naive to all of this, the moment I signed that plea deal, I got civilly sued by 8 Capitol police officers who were black, sued me under the KKK Act, alleging that I was a white supremacist who went to the Capitol to attack black and brown police officers. Mind you, the officer with the shield was a white guy, and these officers weren't even working on the same side of the building I was on. But they were represented by a Soros-funded nonprofit law firm out of D.C. called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. That this is what they do. They represent black and brown people and sue white conservatives. And so that
was
happened.
Roger Stone a defendant in that case?
Yes,
I think
he was.
Trump was too, wasn't he?
Yeah. As far as I know, it's still ongoing. Last I had heard, I have no idea. But so not only does it happen, I mean, I've seen it. Like, it is very real. There's no question. Like, these 8 black officers did not get together and say, we need to sue Brandon Straka because our civil rights were violated on that day. Somebody went and found them, put them together, and said, hey, there could be a payday at the end of this. Thank God I had a good lawyer and I was able to get out of that. But all right, let's move on to Trump, because actually before we get into all this, I do want to close
It's
out.
actually nice it took us this long to get to Trump.
Yeah,
It's kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's
well,
other things going on.
Yeah, and everything that you just said, I actually didn't know. We've known each other for a long time, but I didn't know, how you got into this. I actually didn't really know your whole J6 story. And, but before we get into Trump, because I think everyone kind of knows at this point, like, your feelings about him have changed, and you've been very outspoken about that. So to kind of put to close out January 6th, do you now regret being there on January 6th?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think the reason we were there was because we believe an election was stolen. And we had all the evidence at the time. And in fact, if you go look, I did a Stop the Steal Caravan. I think we had about 20 events. I had basically a whole presentation. It was about an hour long. I did virtually the same presentation. Like, imagine a concert tour, right? You go to the concert tour, they do basically the same thing every time. So we did about 20 of those presentations. And then Trump ended up doing the exact same presentation from his office. Now, I don't know if that's Trump mimicking me, or, I mean, we could both reach the same conclusions, or if somebody said, hey, this is a good idea, let's bring it to Trump. But no, to me, it was about the country. To me, it was about a stolen election. Now, was it stolen from Trump? Was I a Trump supporter? Yeah, all of these things are obviously connected. But to me, it was, and now, Trump, and now everybody agrees. You notice that too? Everybody admits it's a stolen election. Like, they do primetime addresses about a stolen election. It's like, hey, hi, like, we've been here for 6 years.
Right.
So no, I don't have any regrets. I think we did the right thing. I think we did the right thing for our country. That's what it was about. They stole an election. We went and did the right thing by our country. We were right. We were proven right. So no, I have no regrets. Maybe I will say it makes me think twice, though. Now it makes me think twice about getting involved in protests, activism. It's not that I regret it, but it's just like you start to have a little bit more of your head on a swivel and a little bit more of a distrust of the process.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was one of the main purposes of January 6th, too, was to make conservatives feel afraid to ever, go outside, march, rally, demonstrate. And it was very effective. I think a lot of them are afraid at this point. But the prosecutor who drove Matthew Perna to hang himself still works at the DOJ, didn't even lose his job. This will happen again.
They all run the show.
Yeah.
They all run the show, and they're telling us we're not invited. They're gatekeeping us out of it. How can you trust another politician? How could you trust another administration? At the very least, fire them. At the very least.
Right.
I mean, at the least.
I hope you're all enjoying the Brandon Straka Show, and wanted to let you know that for a limited time only, we're featuring episodes both on the Walkaway Campaign YouTube channel and the Brandon Straka YouTube channel. But eventually, all episodes will be exclusively on the Brandon Straka YouTube channel. So if you're watching right now on Walkaway Campaign, do me a favor, head over to the Brandon Straka YouTube channel and click subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes in the future.
We're going to get into Trump now, but I would say, too, I think things might be different if the people whose lives were torn apart and destroyed had been kind of brought into the fold and treated differently. I can tell you that if I had been treated differently, I would have less reservation about getting involved in the future. If I felt like, okay, I wouldn't go out and do, I don't think I did do anything stupid, first of all, but like, I wouldn't go out and do something stupid. But like, if there was a cause that really needed a leader and someone to get involved, and I knew there was risk, I think I would weigh it and say, I'm willing to take that risk, knowing that I have an administration that's going to have my back if anything goes wrong. And I don't. That's very clear that I don't. So
you know what, though?
Yeah.
That is such an important point that you make right there. And I think we need to even, kind of reiterate this. You're probably the same way. It's not really about me.
Right.
Like, I really don't care whether I'm at Mar-a-Lago or in the White House getting a Trump challenge coin. Like, that's really not my motivational factor. Like, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's not really what it is. But what you're describing is something different. It's like, how can you trust another politician? How could you trust another administration? How could you lead from the front to really, stand with the political leader? And then it's like everything that's happened since. It's like I could sit here and point out all of the never Trumpers from 2016 and from 2020 that tried to stop Trump from getting elected while we were paying the price, while we were suffering through these years.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're ingratiated at the White House.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they're advising Trump.
Yeah.
So, I could look at that and make it personal, but that's not even really what it's about for me. For me, it's like, yeah, why would I? Now you have to reevaluate all of this risk. Now you have to sit here and say, wait a second. So at the time when you and I were talking about a stolen election with Donald Trump, the mainstream news wouldn't cover it. Most conservatives in the media wouldn't cover it. They were telling him to shut up. They were giving the election to Biden. They were declaring Arizona before the close of the polls.
That's right.
So it's like, it's like we have to reevaluate everything now, because now all those people that rejected Trump, all those people that told you not to talk about the stolen election, they all run the show.
Yeah.
They all run the show, and they're telling us we're not invited. They're gatekeeping us out of it. So again, it's not, I really don't care if I'm at Mar-a-Lago or not, but it's like, what I do care about is, why am I going to lead an activism, a protest, whatever, a movement, if I know the politicians that I'm supposedly leading it with, at the end of the day, they're going to cut and run.
Right.
They're not going to have our back when it matters most. I know I'm not going to get everything I want. It's not about everything I want. It's not about me. But here's the question I ask MAGA people today that want to talk about, oh, you owe Trump this, you owe Trump that for your pardon. I say, well, let's take a pause. Do you think that the government was weaponized against Trump and his supporters? Do you believe they weaponized the government? Of course, yes, right?
Yes.
Everybody agrees okay. So shouldn't people go to jail? I mean, it's like, if you're, where's the debate? If we're all in agreement here that they weaponized the government against their political opposition, then certainly we all agree that's a crime.
Right.
And certainly we all agree people need to be arrested. But somehow I'm the crazy one for not demanding that justice. I'm the crazy one for wanting to finish this play and take it to the end zone and spike the ball. And I'm the crazy one here. To me, I'm like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And this is all going to happen again if we don't finish it.
Yeah, that's the thing that I find absolutely maddening. And you've said it several times here tonight. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about me. Everything that I do, I try to, and I'm not trying to be like little, Pollyanna here, but like I do what I do on behalf of the American people, because I want to live in a country that's better than what we have today or what we had yesterday. And I also want the people who have supported me and supported Walkway, I want them to be safe. I don't want our government to be weaponized against anybody. And so when I'm calling out people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino or Todd Blanche or Pam Bondi for their inaction on dealing with weaponization, it's not because I'm trying to be some sort of naysayer against this administration. It's because this will happen again. The prosecutor who slapped the terrorism enhancement on Matthew Perna and drove Matthew Perna to hang himself still works at the DOJ. Didn't even lose his job. And it's like people don't. It's like they've just forgotten all of this.
The same feds that did the entrapment case in Michigan with Whitmer, they got relocated to DC. And now, thank God, all those guys have been cleared of their charges now. But that's it. It's like, so that's where you call the game? Like, you don't go and say, hey, who ran this entrapment operation? Tell me all the agents that were involved. Tell me all the people that they answered to. Tell me the brainchild of this. Yeah. And if at the very least, fired them. At the very least.
Right.
I mean, at the least.
At the very least.
I won't say anything. At the least, they should be fired.
Just be patient. Just be patient.
Yeah,
it's
2
coming.
more years.
It's coming.
Yeah, indictments are coming.
Happening.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Sean Hannity told me.
It's all happening. No, it's crazy. And the other side of that coin too, that what you were just saying a second ago about the pardons. I feel like I have to kind of like walk a little bit of a tightrope here, because they've painted us into this corner of appearing ungrateful for our pardons, which is, I'm very grateful that I was pardoned, very grateful. And I mean that sincerely. But I also have to kind of push back a little bit here and say, I was pardoned for something I didn't do. And what I was accused of was standing up for President Trump. So the idea that I wouldn't be pardoned, I mean, wouldn't that be why wouldn't I be pardoned?
It's bizarro world. It is straight up like reverse ideology is what it is, because the logical conclusion is that, if anything, Trump should be thanking us. If anything, and by the way, that's not even a January 6th transactional thing. That's a I'm an American. He works for me. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care, it's like, where did the MAGA ideology become we serve politicians?
Right.
Where did the MAGA ideology become, oh, I serve Donald Trump. I'm honored to serve Donald Trump. Excuse me. They serve us. We're supposed to be the boss here. And, that's when, and I don't know if you want to get into this now, but it's like, when I started seeing that rhetoric and that ideology, I knew it was cooked. I knew the movement that you and I were a part of. I knew the MAGA movement that we've been scratching and clawing to get into the White House, get into DC since 2016, 2015. I knew it was dead. I knew that was it. As soon as people that claim to be MAGA are saying, you owe the president, it's over.
Let's get into it.
It's over. As soon as people started coming at me, when I first started deciding, all right, it's time to call out this administration or nothing is going to get done here, they say, oh, you'll come running back to Trump. I'm like, running back to Trump? What does that even mean? Like, what do you mean running back to Trump? And it hit me because I try to analyze the psychological angle here, and it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, like Trump is like their God. Like Trump is like their Kim Jong-un in North Korea. It's like, oh, but the connection is that, these are people that sell Trump merchandise. These are people that have an entire online brand and personality, all based off of Trump, all based off of MAGA. People call that audience capture. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but it's like, no, this has turned into a pure cult and they can't break with it. And they don't understand. I was here before Trump. I plan on being here after Trump. I'm not here to worship Trump. There's going to be a world after Trump, just like there was a world before Trump. But they're like stuck in this weird cult mindset where it's like Trump is the center of gravity. And as soon as I started seeing that, oh, you'll come running back to Trump, I was like, that's it. This is no longer, this is not the MAGA movement. This is not a patriot movement. This isn't even a free thinking movement anymore when you're talking like that.
Let's take a second right now and draw some parameters, because I think people are going to be watching. Everyone's going to be offended, but some people shouldn't be offended, and some people probably should be offended. So for starters, we're not talking about you if you are somebody who casually still is behind the president, supports the president, and is thinking level-headedly, and it can criticize the president, but call balls and strikes. We're not talking about you. And I think because some people are not seeing the divide, especially if they're older, like a lot of the people who are just kind of watching Fox News and hanging out on Facebook.
But Trump's polling at 150% approval rating on Fox News.
Well, in Israel. But so not talking about you, but what I think who we are talking about are the people who reach out to me, if I express some sort of criticism about a policy point or something. And I literally just read one of these last night. Somebody was in my DMs and said, I've been very shocked lately about some of the things you've been posting. So I need to just ask you directly, are you still 100% behind Donald J. Trump? And I was like, who's 100% behind Donald J? Who was ever 100%? That's crazy. No, I mean, the answer is automatically no. And no one should be. No one should be 100% behind anybody. We should hold anybody accountable. And he's a human. He's not a god. He's not a deity. He's going to make mistakes, and we should be willing to call that out. Everyone should be doing that. We used to do that. MAGA 1.0 used to do that. But this is very different. It's changed. And well, first of all, can you comment on that? And then I want to ask you.
Well, think about the psychology of that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're 100% behind Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump shows up and says, give me your firstborn child, you're going to hand it over? Because that's what you're saying.
Right.
You say, well, that sounds extreme. That's never going to happen. That's not the point. The point is that if you're going to say I'm 100% behind Donald Trump, then he can do anything he wants, and you're not going to say anything about it. Now, get a little more realistic about it. This is where there seems to be this disconnect. I don't feel I've ever changed. I still want mass deportations. I still want no new wars in the Middle East. I still want gas under $3. Like, this is the stuff we were promised. This is the stuff we're not getting. So it's like, wait a second, where have I changed? As far as the policy, as far as the issues, I haven't moved. Trump is the one not delivering. And then these people just play defense, and you get back to the issues and they have nothing to say.
Right.
They have nothing to say. And eventually the window of time, we're here right now. We're here. And then eventually, we're going to be here. And there's going to be no time. And I asked them, what are you going to do then? What are you going to do if Trump's presidency ends and you don't deport 20 million people? You don't get out of the war in the Middle East. You don't
de-weaponize the FBI or
exactly.
the DOJ.
You go down this list and it's like they don't have an answer. It's just like they're really trapped in this cult mind that they think Trump is somehow going to magically deliver all of this. And I think mostly that's because they weren't there for the first administration. You know, we had issues with Trump in the first administration, but there was a plausibility that, okay, he's going to get a second term. There was, the Democrats are disrupting, the media is disrupting. So there was like, okay, there was some plausibility stuff. Maybe Fauci screwed him up on the COVID stuff. It's like there was fair criticism, but it was kind of like, it's like, you know what, maybe there's, reasons. Maybe there's fair excuses this happened. Let's give Trump the second chance. I don't think anybody was going to stop him anyway. But it was like, okay, so we already went through it. I remember Sean Hannity every night, TikTok indictments are coming. TikTok indictments are coming. They never came. It was like, okay, they stole an election. Maybe there was a reason for that. All right, he's going to get in here and now it's going to be barnstorming, right? Now we're going to get the results. Yeah. We're almost to the halftime here and they're not happening.
No.
And it's just like, guys, the window of time, the plausible deniability, hey, we'll get a second administration out of this. That's not the case. And if you lose the midterms and the Democrats take Congress, now you got, I don't know what you can do now. Right. Now you're just totally handicapped.
Yeah. And the thing is, I know a lot of the people who are in the administration, as I'm sure you do too. So I've had concerns since the very beginning because some of the people who went in there, I was like, I understand they're big name people. You see them on Fox News or they're, podcasters or whatever. But I keep coming back to Dan Bongino. My audience gets pissed because a lot of them believe in him. I mean, they think he's a good guy. They think he's a hero. They think I've never liked Dan because, as I was going through January 6th, I reached out to him a dozen times and he would respond. I mean, I'd actually feel better at this point if he had just never responded and I could have said, well, he just never got my messages. But I kept reaching out to him and being like, I'm being crushed. Like my life is being destroyed. And I was like, I can't. These different networks have already said they're not going to have me on. They're not going to platform me. And I was like, I'm trying to get my story out because, what's happening to me is insane. And this is bizarre because like all of you guys are going on your shows every night and talking about the hypotheticals of what, these weaponized Democrats with the government could do. But I'm actually living it on a day-to-day basis. And people didn't really know at that time. People still don't know about us being debanked, deplatformed, everything that put on the terrorism watch list and the Quad S and everything that we went through. And he would respond every once in a while with these really flippant responses like, yeah, if I can find time on the show, I'll have you on. And I'm like, you do a daily podcast, like you couldn't find 5 minutes in the course of like 2 years to have somebody on to get the story out?
Let me give.
And this is the guy who's going to go in and fix everything.
Let me just give Dan Bongino the benefit of the doubt on that, okay? And let me take a different approach to this.
Okay.
Because wasn't it Dan Bongino that did the documentary about the government raids?
Yeah, Deep State.
So it's like
Police State.
So it's like, okay, he's gonna. I mean, I'm assuming he profited off of that. That's fine. I'm a free market capitalist. Make your money, okay? But he's gonna do a documentary essentially about your life.
Yeah.
And he's not even going to give you the time of day to tell your side of the story. Right. So okay, again, it's like, well, I don't know. That's a little strange. People in media can be nasty. They can have big egos. They're not all like us, right? They're not all good guys like us. But, I think the real Bongino story now is here's a guy who for years, really since he became so big, he talked about the corruption of the Obama years. He wrote books about the corruption, Spygate, Russiagate. He's like the go-to guy in the podcast world. All of these criminals, right? Same thing, Biden crime family, all of this stuff. And then he gets in number 2 at the FBI. None of them even get indicted. They probably never even saw a subpoena. Not even a legal document, nothing while he's in there. So he spends 8 years talking about the biggest criminals in U.S. history, modern U.S. history. He's number 2 at the FBI and does nothing about it. And then he goes to his podcast. He goes back to his audience that he talked about this for 8 years.
Right.
And it's like it didn't happen.
Yeah. But see, this is the point that I'm trying to make. I don't want that what I just told you to come across as like I'm butthurt because he didn't have me on his show. What bothers me is that this guy who, to your point, is making a lot of money selling the fear surrounding all of these things, actually at the end of the day has no genuine interest at all in any of these things, because he could have gotten a firsthand account from somebody who was actually experiencing this. And when he had an opportunity to, he really wasn't interested at all. Yeah. And so when he went into the office to clean it up, I'm like, how's he going to clean it up? He doesn't know anything about it. Like, he doesn't actually know anything that happened. He doesn't know any of the players. He doesn't know what happened to anybody. And here we are now at this time where we have this split. And on one side of the split, you've got Tucker and Marjorie and, you know, Joe Kent and Lauren Boebert and all these people. And on the other side, you've got people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And I'm like, it's so crystal clear to me. All the people that are hated by MAGA now are the people who had my back, who supported. Tucker had me on a show for an hour to tell the whole story, to help get it out there. Marjorie, you know, had my back after January 6th. But these are all the people now that MAGA hates. And all the people that they're worshiping and adoring, I wish that they knew, actually didn't care at all about the people who went through all this stuff.
Well, you said a key word there, interest, or maybe we could say will, because what the Democrats proved in the Biden years is where there's a will, there's a way. What the second Trump administration has proved is that there's no will. They simply don't have a will. And I'll go to one example. This is my interpretation, and you know, for people that might be directly involved, don't hold it against me. But this was my interpretation. Lindsay Halligan, you know Lindsay Halligan. She was under Pam Bondi at the time, and the Bondi DOJ was not moving the ball as far as Comey and Letitia James. There was just no movement. And so you have Lindsay Halligan, who's, you know, she's, you know, bottom of the totem pole, but, you know, she's in there. I think she used to do beauty pageants for Trump too. I think that was kind of her in, but she becomes a lawyer. And so she's in there. And I look at, to me, Lindsay Halligan was like the canary in the coal mine, because I think that she's sitting in there and she's like kind of looking at the same things that we're looking at. And she's saying, what's going on here? Like, why is nobody going after Comey? Why is nobody going after James? What is going on? And eventually, I think somebody, maybe even Bondi, said, fine, you want to do it? You go ahead and do it. Now, Halligan didn't have the clearance to do it. She legally could not prosecute the case. And so when the DOJ put Halligan on the case for Comey and James, guess what? It got tossed right out. It got tossed out on a technicality. And to me, that shows the lack of interest. Now, again, my interpretation is Halligan had the interest, and Halligan said, I'll do it. Halligan said, I'll do it. I'll cut my teeth here. I'll make a name for myself. Send me, right? Send me, they all say. So Halligan was like, send me. I don't care. And it just got tossed right out on the technicality. You know, maybe she knew about that. Maybe she didn't. Maybe Bondi did or didn't. Bondi should,
right?
But maybe she didn't.
Yeah.
But to me, that was like the canary in the coal mine. I was like, okay, here's the person that actually has interest. Young girl. She's about my age. She actually has interest. And she says, all right, I'm going to pursue this case. But it gets tossed out on a technicality. And now Comey and Letitia James are still walking free. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like there's going to be no accountability. So let's get back to Bongino. So what Bongino says now is, you know, he does his whole tough guy routine. He's like, I was in there. What did you do? What did you do? Well, the obvious response would be, well, I don't know. I've never had the chance. But you know what? Fine. You know, you were in there, Dan. You were in there. You know more than me. So I'll accept it. I'm low man here. You were there. You're the bigger man. But it's like you and I accomplished the same thing.
Right.
You know, it's like there's no difference between what you accomplished bringing down the deep state. You didn't get anybody from the Biden administration. You didn't get anybody from the Obama administration. And now you have to go in front of your audience and do a tough guy act. Well, I was there. I did it. What did you do? My haters did nothing. But to me, it's like, well, hold on a second. Is there anybody in there that has the interest?
Right.
Is anybody even trying?
Right.
Is anybody, like, you remember, it was, I believe it was Byron Donalds that chaired the House Oversight Committee. They have all the Biden documents. I mean, we have bank records, transactions, emails, text. It's like, there it all is. It's right there. Nobody wants to prosecute this? Nobody? Bongino? Bongino doesn't want to hang his hat on like the biggest pay-for-play ever in the history of the White House, and he doesn't want to hang his hat on that. And then it's like, that's what I said. So when I saw they send Halligan to get Comey, I'm like, there's no will. Nobody wants to do this.
So what do you think that is? What is it? I mean, what you say, I mean, obviously there are people who would like to, if given the opportunity. They're not there. They're not chosen. So why are people being chosen who have no appetite to actually do anything? Why? Why is this happening?
I think it's Trump. That's it. I think it's that simple. And who
But what
knows?
about Trump?
I think he's corrupt. I think, you know, and maybe he always was, maybe he never was until recently. But what I think has happened in the course of time is that it's like, yeah, okay, you want to go after Obama? Guess what? You're going downhill. We got all of this dirt on you. What are you going to do? You want to go after Biden? Well, look, we got this on you. What are you going to do? And I think that that's like the game. It seems like that's the game. I think that Trump at one point in time meant what he said. I think that Trump in 2015 and 2016 meant what he said. I still believe that. But something happened along the way, and he either accepted it can't be done, or he became complacent, said it's not worth it, he doesn't want to get shot, whatever. Or maybe he got so close and they said, okay, you pull the trigger on this, guess what? All of this comes out about you too. And it's just a hive of villainy and corruption, you know? And it's like, if you pull one down, they all bring you down with them. Why didn't he go after Hillary Clinton? I don't know. You'd have to ask him that. But I mean, there's one common factor, and that's Donald Trump. He's the one common factor in all of these questions. How can I not land on that conclusion?
Well, I think when you look back to Hillary Clinton and everything in the first term, it could be argued that he was trying to unify the country, that a lot of this stuff was to get people riled up on the campaign trail. He got voted in and he thought, okay, I won. I have the power now. I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm not going to deliver on some of this stuff, but I'm going to do it in the interest of unifying the country. Well, the country didn't unify anyway. And as a matter of fact, they ousted him. And then they tried to kill him, and then they tried to put him in prison, so it makes no sense at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
First, he wouldn't do this.
First go around, plausibility of why things didn't go the way we wanted.
Right.
This administration, none. No benefit of the doubt. Either do it or don't. That's
Right.
how I look at it.
Yeah, but I want to know why we're not. I want to know. I mean, you're suggesting at this point that there may actually be a more. You're saying corruption. I mean, you feel like there might actually be a nefarious reason. I had just presumed it was like just incompetence, that just people they're getting these jobs and just not doing anything.
But then we would have to reach the conclusion that the Trump administration is less competent than the Biden administration. I mean, that's the conclusion we have to reach. You and I had both been indicted by this time in the Biden administration. In fact, we may have even already been in jail. I don't know. Yeah. I was going to say, I'd have to go back and look at the timeline. So by that measurement, the Biden administration is more competent, and it's undeniable. Again, the Biden administration proved where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, they were motivated.
They want to lock up 1,600 Trump supporters. They're going to do it. They want to hit Trump with a civil case, a rape case, all this other stuff. They're going to do it. Where's the will? Where is the will from the Trump administration? And I'll sit here every day and demand these results. And I'll tell you this, and I say this all the time to my haters. Stop sending Americans to die in the Middle East. Stop spending billions and trillions of dollars in the Middle East. That's all you had to do. I don't believe they really care about keeping Democrats out of power, quite frankly. I don't believe them when they say, we have to do everything we can to stop the Democrats from winning. And I say, really, everything? And I say, get us out of Iran. Anything but that. People have a zero tolerance on foreign policy in the Middle East. They're done. So now it's the woke right. They don't want to have an honest conversation about the Middle East. They don't want to have an honest conversation about the Israeli lobby. They don't want to have an honest conversation about what the hell we're doing in the Middle East for 25 fucking years.
Patriots, this month the Walkaway campaign turns 8 years old. And in the last 8 years, we have gotten more than 1 million people to join us in the Walkaway movement. Over 100,000 people have submitted their written and video testimonials sharing their stories about why they're walking away from the divisive anti-American Democrat Party. But we're just getting started. We're going to continue crossing the country from coast to coast, going into college campuses, talking to impressionable young people, talking to Black voters, Hispanic voters, LGBT people, Jewish people, and all Americans who have ever been indoctrinated by the divisive Marxist Democrat Party. We're going to wake up and liberate everybody and get everyone to walk away, but we need your help. If you support the work that we do, please go to walkawaycampaign.com, click donate, and if you can't make a monthly recurring donation, please give one time. But if you're able to, please become a monthly recurring supporter. Even $1 a month helps drive our mission forward. So please help if you can. Go to walkawaycampaign.com and please donate.
There is nothing I would love more than for Trump to come out and prove me wrong. This is what we fought for. It's like this big gotcha thing, like, oh, Trump's going to do all this and you'll see. It's like, Great. He's going to do what I voted for. He's going to do what I went to prison for. He's going to do what I had all this law. Like, he's going to do what I fought for. Like, this is great. How is that an own on me?
Yeah.
Right. So there's nothing I would love more than for Trump to actually do all this stuff, turn it all around, get it all done. And then all the MAGA haters can point and laugh at me and tell me what a big idiot I am. And I'll take it. I'll take the egg on my face. I'll eat the crow, whatever. I'll shave my head bald. I don't care. I'll celebrate it. Like that's what I voted for. But I'm not going to sit here and wait until there's 0 seconds left on the clock to take the shot.
Right.
Because that's what this is like. This is like, let's just wait. Let's wait. Till when?
Right.
Till when?
Well, and unfortunately, too, the people saying just wait, be patient, it's coming. They're also the same people who, when we run out of time and it's over, they're just going to say it wasn't his fault. He didn't have any support. Nobody had his back. Nobody was. He was working against the whole. He can't drain the whole swamp by himself. Like,
and then look what he did to the people that had his back.
Yeah, well, why are we hearing so much about anti-Semitism now? We weren't talking about this in the first administration. Now it's like all we talk about.
Well, because the Trump administration, I think, works more for the foreign lobby than us. I think the Israeli lobby has more influence over DC politics, specifically foreign policy, than we do. But how do you stomp that out? How do you stomp that conversation out? Well, you do what the woke left did for all these years. Oh, you're a racist. It's like, what? We're talking about crime statistics. You're a racist, or all the other garbage that they would throw around there and say you're a racist. Hey, we want voter ID. You're a racist. What? Voter ID is racist? So it's the same thing. Hey, I want out of the Middle East. You're an anti-Semite. What? It's foreign policy. Hey, I don't like the foreign lobby owning 96% of our sitting congressmen. You're an anti-Semite. What? What does this even have to do? But I think that there's a more sinister game behind it, because what I've picked up on over the last couple of years is the Zionist Israel loyalists love using other individual Jews as their political body shield. And so they love to play this game where it's like, oh, every Jew is Israel, every Jew is a Zionist. And so, if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing every Jew and you're an anti-Semite. Well, obviously that's ludicrous. That's absurd. Nobody reasonable would argue that. But you realize there's an intention. There's an intention so that they can push unpopular foreign policy or even start unpopular wars. And then if you criticize it and point out, hey, it's the Israeli lobby controlling Congress doing this, they get to put some innocent Jewish individual in front of you and say, look at this anti-Semite. What are you doing to them? You're like, no. I'm talking about Mark Levin that wants to send American men and women to die. I'm talking about Ben Shapiro, who is never Trump, that all of a sudden loves this new war and loves Trump because of it. I'm talking about Marian Adelson donating hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump and now seemingly has more influence over the administration than you or I, who went to jail for Trump. And then Trump goes to Israel, points at Marian Adelson and says she cares more about Israel than America. And this is Trump's top donor. And it's just like, okay, so wait a second. We're connecting dots here. It's a 6-pointed star on a blue and white flag. Okay, this is clearly where this influence is coming from. Oh, you anti-Semite. So it's the same thing the woke left did. They hurl these words in front of you like racist, bigot, all of this stuff to stop an honest conversation from happening. So now it's the woke right. They don't want to have an honest conversation about the Middle East. They don't want to have an honest conversation about the Israeli lobby. They don't want to have an honest conversation about what the hell we're doing in the Middle East for 25 fucking years. So they say, you're an anti-Semite, hoping that you'll stop talking about it. But they're learning some of us aren't going to be bullied by that. And it's mostly the same people that weren't bullied by the woke left, by the way. It mostly seems like the same people that just plowed right through all of that woke left rhetoric that are now plowing right through all the woke right rhetoric.
But why is anybody on our side falling for this? And before you even answer that question, I'll say, I do think that the people doing this have already lost the PR war before it barely got out of the gate. I mean, this to me is like backfiring spectacularly in these people's faces so fast, like certainly much faster than because we had to deal with wokeism from the left for a long, long time before it became just like insufferable. This has become insufferable like in a matter of months. And I do think that the people doing this are not going to win the culture war. But there are a lot of people in the MAGA movement who have fallen for it. I mean, I've seen the same people who I used to battle the left with for years, and who saw so clearly when the left was calling us Nazis and racists and bigots and transphobic and all this stuff. now calling people anti-Semitic and Jew haters. And if I have to see the word Jew spelled with the letter O, like, it's all about the Jews.
It's like, what does that say?
Stop it. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm white. But why, how can they, why are they doing this?
You know what? I don't know. That's an incredible phenomenon. It really is. And the only interpretation that I can take from it is that they're just trapped in the left-right paradigm. Like, there is no other middle ground. There's no gray area. And so they're kind of trapped in this thought process that if you don't support Israel, you're a leftist. And I think that that's kind of why they fall back on that. Oh, you're a leftist, you're a liberal. It has nothing to do with that. This is a foreign policy debate. So, but what you said is actually very important, that they already lost the PR battle. And what I've actually discovered, if you go back in time, it's actually not new. This has actually been going on since the early 2000s. Anytime you question foreign policy, they call you an anti-Semite. In fact, you can go back to Ron Paul when he would talk foreign policy. You can even go all the way back to Ross Perot. You can go back to Richard Nixon. So actually, this has been going on for a long time. It's just kind of been a murmur, and the average American hasn't really picked up on it. And the reason I think that changed is because Trump campaigned against the Middle East wars. Trump campaigned against the intervention in the Middle East. He specifically even talked about how it was a disaster, trillions of dollars, bloodshed. So that kind of changed the attitude, I think, of people on the right, especially people that weren't neocon war hawks on the right, that it was like, oh, okay, somebody with our side of the foreign policy debate just got into the White House. So it was kind of the first time where we had that, in recent memory, a political figure with a similar foreign policy consideration that we have, which is, hey, we're sick of being in the Middle East. So it kind of gave us this newfound representation in Washington, D.C., more so than we'd ever had, specifically on the right wing, in decades. And so I think that kind of brought up this ability now to kind of talk about the foreign intervention, talk about the foreign policy. And now that Trump has gone the other way on it, now it's very directional. We all see that AIPAC is the one buying congressmen and women. We all see that it's the Adelson money being injected to all of these big races. And now all of a sudden Trump changes his mind. All of a sudden he changes heart on the Middle East. Well, that doesn't add up. So what's causing it? Well, we all see it's literally the foreign lobby. It's literally the Israeli lobby. It's literally Marion Adelson. So I think it's a way of stopping this conversation. I think it's a way of stopping, because really at the end of the day, this is what I believe. I think that without the United States of America, I don't really know what Israel's fate is. And I don't say this cold-heartedly, but I really don't care. It's not my country. I don't want to be involved in Israel's business. However Israel wants to handle its business in the Middle East, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
If Israel wants to feed Palestinians to alligators, it's like I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to know about it. But you know what? My tax dollars are subsidizing your country's existence. And now my military is basically your bodyguard, your security agency, so that all the stuff you do in the region never comes back to you. But guess what? They come here. They come here, don't they? They all flood our borders. All the war refugees for these wars, they all flood our borders. They all come here. They don't go to Israel. They're coming here. They're going to Europe. And so I think people are finally fed up with it. I think the younger generations have finally had enough of living with this our whole lives. We're finally having a real conversation about it. So here comes the, oh, anti-Semite, oh, Jew hater. Stop the conversation. Stop it right now. No, we're not going to stop the conversation.
Well, and the fact that our taxpayer dollars are going to fund this war that so many people under the age of 50 really don't want any involvement with whatsoever, but we're not even allowed to talk about it or have an opinion about it without being called a Jew hater or an anti-Semite. I actually am going to bury my face right now because I'm so embarrassed. I want to ask you this is so stupid, and I'm so sorry for even asking you this because it's so dumb, but I do want to just ask you how you feel about Jewish people, because I have a lot of people who know you in my audience are, oh, Owen Shroyer, anti-Semite, oh my God, he hates Jews, and I'm like, he criticizes Israel. He criticizes, which is not the same thing. Do you hate Jews?
No, I don't hate anybody.
Yeah, I've
never hated anybody, and it's actually funny. I was never even, I guess you would say, exposed to anti-Semitism until I was in high school, because I had a neighborhood that was neighboring my neighborhood that was mostly Jewish. So when I was in middle school, grade school, I was mostly hanging out with my friends in my neighborhood. You get into high school, now you're driving, you're going to different parties. Started hanging out with a bunch of Jewish kids, got along, had a bunch of great Jewish friends in high school. They were the most anti-Semitic people I've ever met. These people would rip Jew jokes. I'd be sitting there like, holy shit, like, oh my God. So this whole concept of being an anti-Semite is just so foreign, but it's not based in any reality at all, you know?
Yeah.
And there is no doubt. I will say though, there is undoubtedly a rise in anti-Semitism. I don't think that anybody can deny that. But I think that this labeling everybody an anti-Semite for disagreeing on foreign policy, I think that's kind of driving it. I think that some people kind of look at that and they say, fine, point the finger and call me it enough times. I'm just going to be it. Like,
Right.
why not? Like, you're just going to keep accusing me of this. I stick to foreign policy. But I do think that it's going to get worse. And I did a report a couple years ago where I warned, I said, look, if you want to stop anti-Semitism, you need to make sure you separate voices like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, Ben Gvir, Benjamin Netanyahu. You need to make sure you have a buffer between just an individual Jewish person in Europe, in America, wherever. You need to make sure that hey, just because people don't like Netanyahu or Ben Gvir or these other personalities, it doesn't mean they don't like any other Jewish person.
Right.
But that's what they're doing. And it goes back to what I say. They use it like a political body shield. That's what they do. They use individual Jews like a political body shield to try to bully you from talking about the topic. And I do think if you really want to get to the bottom of it, I think these people care about Israel more than America. And that's the big secret. And so now that that's starting to be exposed, now that this facade that these people that pretend to be American patriots, oh, I'm a chest booming American patriot, I love America. Turns out you only love America if it supports Israel.
Right.
And now that's what's being exposed. So this is when they start pointing the fingers and calling names to try to stop this exposure from happening. But as you said in the opening, I think it's done. I think it's a done deal. The goose is already cooked. It's just a matter of how are they either going to land this plane and do kind of a separation, or are they just going to force us to be in this relationship forever until it gets so bad? I mean, yeah, you'll be electing people probably on the left wing that will be rabid anti-Semites. I mean, that's probably where this will end up.
I don't think there's any denying that a lot of these people, especially like the online influencers, who have all of a sudden got really behind the Trump administration, loved Trump, loved us being in Iran. And then all of a sudden when, Trump, there was the troubles with the MOU and things like that. Then all of a sudden they started kind of backing off Trump and they weren't sure if they loved Trump so much anymore. And I'm like, wait a second, you're an American citizen. And a second ago, I mean, you were giving this impression that like, we've got to stand behind our president. We've got to.
And by the way, it's like if you criticize Trump because we're not getting mass deportations, you're bad.
Right.
But if they criticize Trump for not starting a new war, somehow you're still bad.
Right. Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, unfortunately, this is like, I think, a huge part of the divide and where we've ended up here. And I keep talking about the generational part of this. It seems like the baby boomers are kind of captured by this pro-Israel mentality, and they don't seem to understand the criticism that a lot of younger people have about, like you said, they don't view Israel the same way that the older generation do, and they don't want to be involved in these foreign wars anymore. And so
that's putting it lightly.
I'm trying to be as nice about it as possible because they're not really seeing it. But I think I'm trying to kind of delicately lead us to the next thing, really, which is sort of like the midterms and why I think that we're in huge trouble. And I think that a lot of people are about to get really surprised by what's going to happen in November. What's your opinion?
Well, what's frustrating is when I see, Republicans, right-wing commentators who are looking at the midterms and they're warning about Democrats getting into power, and they're looking at somebody like me and, maybe saying you're going to be part of this reason for this. And I kind of am flattered. You think I have more influence than Donald Trump? You think I have more influence than President Trump? Well, okay, that's quite the flattery. No, I think if Democrats win, it's because of Trump. I think if the Trump administration and the Republicans can't deliver, then that's on them. That's not on me because I'm reporting news on the air every day. But what I find ironic, it's like I don't even believe them at their word. And here's why. If they're really panicked about the midterms, and if they're really panicked about Democrats coming into power and all the bad things, right? We all hear about the bad things that the Democrats are going to do. We already have some experience with it, the open borders, the weaponization. It's like, okay, so we're assuming you're serious and we have to do everything we can to stop the Democrats from getting in power, right? Okay, we all agree. All right, stop new wars. stop going into the Middle East. Can you just do that? It's like, that's it. All you have to do is not go to war. That's it. Literally, stop sending Americans to die in the Middle East. Stop spending billions and trillions of dollars in the Middle East. That's all you had to do. That's it. And you could run with the midterms, and maybe you could even mitigate some of these other issues with deportations and taxes and everything else. It's like, maybe you can mitigate that. People have a zero tolerance on foreign policy in the Middle East. They're done. Zero, zilch. They want nothing. And so I don't believe them. I don't believe they really care about keeping Democrats out of power, quite frankly. And in fact, the foreign lobby owns the Democrats too. So I'm not even sure you get a difference in foreign policy if the Democrats win in the midterms. I guess maybe we might find out, but I don't believe them. I don't believe them when they say, we have to do everything we can to stop the Democrats from winning. And I say, really, everything? And I say, get us out of Iran. Anything but that. Anything but that. Okay, fine. How about mass deportations? Well, I don't know. How about deep state arrest? So it's like, you keep reaching this wall every time. And it's like, here are the issues we voted on. Are they happening or are they not happening? No. Okay. Maybe we do some linear thinking exercises. Is weaponization of government bad? Yes. Did the Democrats do it? Yes. Should they be punished? Yes. Have they been punished? No. And so it's like
they haven't even been fired, to your point earlier.
So it's just like you keep running into this wall and you realize there is a group of people in the media, there is a group of people in DC, for whatever reason, their number one priority is the Middle East. I don't know if it's because they love Israel. I don't know if it's because they own shipping futures or they want to manipulate the stock market or the oil market. Whatever it is, clearly there is a group of people that have power and influence in American media and American politics, and their top priority is the Middle East. Well, guess what? 99% of Americans don't give a flying rip about the Middle East. We're sick of hearing about the Middle East. We want out of the Middle East. And so you have the 1% in DC that is forcing this unpopular foreign policy on the 99% rest of us. And it's just about to get really messy. And I think the difference with the boomer generation and the younger generations, and I give them a little benefit of the doubt here, when they were absorbing news on foreign policy or war, they really only had 3 or 4 outlets, right? It was like you're going to the network news, maybe your local paper has a story on it. We can go anywhere. We can go to any country. We can go to any, it's like we have thousands of options to get this information now. And it's a lot harder for them to gatekeep the things that we see because anybody can film a video. Anybody can film a video. They can send it. They can post it. They can publish it. And then they can spread it far and wide. So now we actually get to see these wars unlike we've ever seen them before. We actually get to see the aftermath of our foreign policy. We get to see what our greatest ally in the Middle East is actually doing with their wars. And the young people have rejected it. They've rejected it, and they're never going to get it out of their mind. And the other thing that's crazy about this too, so I kind of give it's like the boomers, they've been hit with MK Ultra brainwashing their entire life. And so part of me is like, all right, maybe I can understand that. Now
they could be a little more open-minded. I'm just saying.
I think they're getting there.
You do?
I will say, I'm starting to see the cracks start to break. I do think they're getting there.
Good.
But here's the ironic part of it all. When you talk about younger Americans, or even probably me and your age here, our whole lives, we've been bashed over our head about the Holocaust. It's like a nonstop feed of Holocaust bad, Holocaust bad, Holocaust bad. Nobody can, Nazis, worst ever. Adolf Hitler, worst ever, worst ever, worst ever. And then here, like, what are we talking about? We're talking about a ethno-state. We're talking about a racial superiority nationalist ethno-state. We're talking about expanding, going into foreign lands, starting wars, killing people, concentration camps. So it's like, we're forced, this is the worst evil ever.
Right.
This is the worst evil ever on the history of the planet Earth. And we're all told this and taught this as soon as we learn how to read a book. Well, now all these kids are watching Israel do that. Now, all of these kids that were told this is how the greatest evil ever on the history of Earth operates. It's like, okay, we don't want to see this. Now they're seeing it. Now they're seeing it, and it's Israel doing it. And so really, they're simply responding to the post-World War II propaganda saying we cannot have a racial supremacist national ethno-state, committing crimes like this. Really, it's their own programming. Really, it's their own propaganda programming that I think is causing this massive, and that's maybe why it started on the left more than anything, because they're always virtue signaling the most. They're always the bleeding heart liberals, so maybe that's why it started on the left first. But that's what it is. I think there are a lot of Republicans that will go vote Democrat, not even on a policy base, just because they want to give a middle finger. The left and the right have to come together. They have to come together, and then they're going to have to say, where are you willing to make a compromise? It's a lot harder for them to gatekeep the things that we see because anybody can film a video. So now we actually get to see these wars unlike we've ever seen them before. And the young people have rejected it. They've rejected it, and they're never going to get it out of their mind.
I hope you're all enjoying the Brandon Straka Show and wanted to let you know that for a limited time only, we're featuring episodes both on the Walkaway Campaign YouTube channel and the Brandon Straka YouTube channel. But eventually, all episodes will be exclusively on the Brandon Straka YouTube channel. So if you're watching right now on Walkaway Campaign, do me a favor, head over to the Brandon Straka YouTube channel and click subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes in the future.
They've been propagandized to reject all the behavior that they're seeing from Israel, but now it's like they're being told, oh, no. But when Israel does it, it's okay.
Well, that was going to be my question, because there's going to be a lot of people watching this who say, I mean, what do you say to anyone who says, well, Israel's defending itself. It has a right to defend itself. It's, they're not the aggressors. This is this tiny, powerless country, state, amidst all, surrounded by enemies.
Well, I mean, it's obviously, it's BS, but I would say, okay, so who does and doesn't have the right to defend themselves? Do Palestinians have the right to defend themselves? Do the people in southern Lebanon have a right to defend themselves? Oh no, they're terrorists. They're terrorists. The IDF goes in and starts shooting people and they shoot back. They're terrorists. They're the bad guys. They're going to get wiped off the earth. So obviously that logic is not applied both ways. And, this is where it's like, for me, the ultimate hiccup is, well, what happened on October 7th? Do you really don't think the IDF couldn't make it for 7 hours? Really?
Yeah.
Like you really don't think Israel, probably the #1 security state in the world, technologically advanced, militarily advanced? I mean, Tel Aviv is like 40 minutes from Gaza. It's
Do you believe their own government was involved or had knowledge?
Yeah. I believe it was at the very least a stand down. And now we actually have on testimony, you've had IDF soldiers at the Knesset, you've had IDF soldiers in front of judges testify that they believe October 7th was a stand down. There's a big blockade between kind of anti-establishment Israelis and America. Benjamin Netanyahu, there are anti-Netanyahu protests every day in Israel. There's young Israelis right now that basically sound like me and you. They talk like me and you. They call out Netanyahu. They say the same things about October 7th. They say the same things about the military. This hardly ever makes its way into America's airwaves for obvious reasons. Because if we see, oh, you mean there's generations now of Israelis that don't like Netanyahu? You mean there's personalities, individuals, media members in Israel that are saying October 7th? There's even IDF people saying October 7th was a stand down. IDF soldiers are committing suicide at an alarming rate right now. Very similar to what happened to U.S. soldiers. Is that because they go and they fight these wars and then they question, wait, was I the good guy or bad guy? And now all of a sudden suicide rates are up in the IDF too. So none of this makes its way into the American media. And yet you start to see this and you start to realize, oh, this is totally a controlled parallel here. Oh, everybody loves Netanyahu. Oh, everybody in Israel thinks it's doing great. No, that's not even the case. There are plenty of people in Israel. They have a left and a right just like us. They have dissenters and loyalists just like any other country on earth. But we don't ever get that information here. And I think they do that intentionally.
What do you think will happen in November? I mean, do you think it's a scenario where, do you think that we're going to see a mass protest of people abstaining? Do you think people are just going to come out and vote anyway? Before you answer, I want to say I'm so tired. I keep hearing this more than I've ever heard it in my entire life. We just have to vote because the bottom line, Democrats are worse than Republicans. We've got to stop the Democrats.
Bad argument. That doesn't motivate me.
It's so uninspiring.
And you know what? You know what's even funnier about that is like, we're the guys that argument should work on, right? Like we're the guys that have been censored and put in prison by Democrats, and it doesn't even work on us.
Right.
It's like, yeah, that doesn't move me much. So if it doesn't move us, is that really moving anybody in the middle?
Right.
I think the Democrats will win the House. I think they'll probably get a double-digit majority in the House. Right now, I think the Senate I have it at 50-50. Alaska could end up being the tie-breaking vote. It could go either way right now. Alaska would either give Democrats 51 or keep them at 50. So I think it's going to be pretty tight. There are things the Trump administration could probably do between now and then, I think we're at like 89 days or something. There are things that they could do that might give them a chance to say, okay, we're definitely going to keep the Senate, or maybe we can get the House a little more interesting. But I just don't see any desire to do the things that need to be done in order to shift that. So I do think the Democrats will take the House, and at best case, maybe Republicans have 51, but probably 50 in the Senate.
Okay, so if they are we talking about like a bloodbath, or are we talking about like a normal midterm year?
The issues that are going to motivate people to vote are foreign policy, the data centers. There's big single issue voters on data centers,
Affordability.
and the economy. And I think the Democrats, all polls indicate they're winning on all three of these things right now. Foreign policy, it's not even a debate.
Yeah.
Economy, they're winning in all the polls. Maybe you could say, I don't know. Data centers, Trump and the Republicans are pushing data centers. I mean, Trump is up there telling you it's the greatest thing ever. We need to beat China at data centers. You mean China, the AI surveillance state? That's
Right.
what they use it for. And now you're going to tell us that we need it. So those single issues, Democrats are winning on. I do think there are people, though, that the question is, are Republicans going to show up? I think. I think that's the
I
question.
want to know. What do
Yeah.
you think?
I don't think so.
You don't.
No, I don't know how bad it's going to be, but I don't think so. I think a lot of Republicans are just going to sit it out. I think they're feeling indifferent. I think there are a lot of Trump supporters that will go vote Democrat just to spite Trump. I think there are a lot of Republicans that will go vote Democrat, not even on a policy base, just because they want to give a middle finger. And, you know, this is the two conclusions that I've kind of reached here is, and quite frankly, this is my mindset. It's just who I am. If somebody allows me the option to go vote and give the establishment and give the government the middle finger, I want to take that opportunity. That's why I voted for Trump. That's why I was such a big Trump supporter. Trump was our big, fat, stinking middle finger right in the establishment's face. And so now I feel like that's the Democrats. I feel like if people want to go give a middle finger vote, it's going to be for the Democrats. And I think that that might also be a motivational factor for many Trump supporters just to go give this administration the middle finger by voting Democrat.
Well, so if you look at, Thomas Massey's primary results, I just have a really hard time believing that the people who came out to vote for Massey in the primary are going to come out in the general election to vote for Galrine. Is it Galrine? And I just can't help but feel in my gut like we're going to see that across the entire nation. Like I just feel that younger conservatives, younger Republicans are not going to hold their nose and vote.
I'll tell you this: if they lose that Kentucky district, then you will see a bloodbath. I mean, that's an indicator of bloodbath. That's a red district. They never vote blue. That's like pure red, beginning and always red. So if they can't even hold a Kentucky district that's been red for our whole lives, then that would indicate there's going to be a bloodbath. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't. I think Trump still has enough support. And I still think people don't like Democrats, that I don't think it'll be a bloodbath like that. I think it'll be closer. But that would be, if it's that bad, the Democrats will have 52, 53 seats maybe in the Senate, and they'll have like a 25 vote majority in the House. But I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think the Senate will probably be within one. The House will be close to double digits or maybe a dozen for them. I just don't really see. It's not like Democrats are popular, right? I mean, it's not like they're really getting people that excited to vote. So I just don't really see that yet.
I don't think Democrats are popular. I've never felt that the Republican Party was less popular.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what that actually means, what that turns into. Before we close out, I want to ask you about this America First movement and whatever may be around the corner, probably after the midterms, in terms of like Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Kent, Tucker, and many other people. What do you think is coming next? What do you think that is?
Well, I think Joe Kent has kind of said a lot about what they're doing. You know, everybody remembers the Tucker Carlson, Thomas Massey, Joe Kent, Marjorie Taylor Greene dinner picture.
Yeah.
And boy, that sent shockwaves up the establishment spine. So that, to me, I already like that. The fact that the establishment is already getting, scary tinglies over that dinner meeting tells me that, okay, there's something real there. I always figured there were two paths to saving America. One was a billionaire had to run for president. We had to have a billionaire that had fuck you money and who had name recognition, and he could just plow through it. Like, he could just plow through it. We got it. It was Donald Trump. Well, okay, we're in the final phases of seeing what that's going to end up like. It's not looking good for us. The other option was the left and the right have to come together. They have to come together, and they have to find common issues that they're gonna force results on, and then they're gonna have to say, where are you willing to make a compromise? So, you know, it might look something like, okay, Democrats will say we're not going to open the border. Republicans will say we're not going to, you know, cut Medicaid or some negotiation like this. Sides will have to make sacrifices, find compromises, and then say, here are the issues we're committing to getting results on. We're committing to getting results on these issues. And I do think that that's kind of the feeling out method right now. You know, Joe Kent made most of these announcements with the Young Turks. Obviously, that's a left-wing organization, probably considered radical left to many people. And yet this is where Joe Kent can find common ground now. This is where kind of dissident right people, strangely enough, in this twilight zone we're in now, it's like the dissident left and the dissident right are all of a sudden finding common ground.
Right,
Mostly, I think, on foreign policy, because both younger generations are sick of that. But I think that's what they're kind of feeling out. Now, what is going to be interesting is who's going to bankroll it. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to fund it. Is Elon Musk interested in something like that? Is that something that the Elon Musk America Pact will say, okay, I've got a couple $100 million. I'll back this third party movement, whatever you want to call it, the America Party, the Patriot Party, whatever it is. I'll bankroll this for you in the 2028. I like it. I already see a coalition building. I already have noticed that at least for my show, a lot of people on the left, a lot of liberals, a lot of progressives are agreeing with a lot of the stuff that I'm saying. And they're not as hawkish on conservative issues now. They're not as hawkish. You know, they're not complaining about closing the border. Maybe they don't like how the deportations are being handled, you know, some of the stuff we see in the street, but they're not like against it necessarily. It's like, okay, maybe we can find common ground, get the bad guys out. So I've noticed that a lot of far left people are kind of willing to say, you know what, you guys can handle the border and maybe some other stuff, but hey, I agree. We've got to do something about foreign policy. We've got to do something about all the wasteful spending. We've got to do something about all the lobbying. We got to do something about all the money that's in DC. And so I'm already noticing that just with my audience, which I probably had like almost no left wingers, not centrist. I mean like left wingers listening to my show 4 years ago. Now they're in the audience every day saying, yeah, we agree. Or, you know, hey, maybe I disagree with this. Maybe I disagree with this. But it's like the big issues. It's like, yes, this is what needs to happen if we want to save our country. Seems the dissident left and the dissident right are starting to agree on a lot of these things. So I do think it coalesces in 2028. Now, the other thing that's happening, and this is going to get a lot louder. This is going to get a lot louder after the midterms. There's going to be a big push for the money that's controlled right-wing politics. You know, the Republican Party has been a vehicle for neocons. The Republican Party has been a vehicle for the military-industrial complex, the foreign policy. Well, if all of a sudden a third party pops up and it's basically everybody that left MAGA, well, guess what? The Republicans are done. They're done. That's not hurting the Democrats' bottom line. That's maybe like a 5% hit from the Democrats. If a third party runs in 2028 with kind of right-wing dissidents, people kicked out of MAGA, whatever, that's going to be like at least 20, 30% of the Republican voting base right there. Done. Over. And now the only reason they care is because the Republican Party is their vehicle. The Republican Party is their vehicle for wars in the Middle East. The Republican Party is their vehicle for the military-industrial complex, all the weapons contracts, all the money flowing nonstop. If they see their vehicle being threatened, they're going to do everything they possibly can to maintain that vehicle. So I expect the attacks on Joe Kent to intensify. I expect the attacks on Marjorie Taylor Greene to intensify, you know, go down the list, Tucker Carlson. I expect it to get really, really loud. The only question, the only question becomes at this point, how do these people not become absolute total monsters in the next 2 years? Because they're already starting to show the signs. I mean, Laura Loomer looks like a psychotic demon now. I mean, that's just what it is. How do these people maintain a face in the next 2 years. I don't think they can. I think the mask is about to fully slip. I think they're about to show their true nature. I think they're about to show their true corruption. I think they're about to show their true loyalties. And I just don't think there's anything they can do to stop it. And the one thing that they have never had to deal with, and this is their big issue right now, they've never had to deal with pushback on the right. Never. They have never had to deal with pushback on the right. They can make it left, right, say you're a liberal, whatever. Doesn't work anymore. Now, the majority of people on the right don't like the foreign policy. Now, the majority of people on the right are sick of the Israeli lobby, want nothing to do with it. They've never had to endure. And there was one moment that I think this is when I realized it. When Ted Cruz went on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker was just asking him basic questions about the foreign policy, the relationship with Israel, and Cruz basically shat the interview. I mean, he sat there and was just befuddled the whole time. And that's when it hit me. It was like, oh my God, they have never had to answer these questions.
Right.
They've never had to actually formulate any response or answer to these questions, because if it's coming from the left, they don't have to listen. If it's coming from the left, you just shuffle it aside, say that's leftist, that's Democrats. Now that it's coming from the right, they're just like, they're just deer in the headlights. They don't know what to say. So I do anticipate the next phase of this is going to get very ugly.
But are enough people awake that, because we're talking about really like a burgeoning, fledgling new movement on the right, potentially, if this happens hypothetically, and I believe that it will, against really the entirety of the machine. You're going to have Fox News, you're going to have all the establishment Republicans, you're going to have all of these people, and I mean, they're really going to lean into this. It's far right Nazis, anti-Semites, Jew hating. This is what this movement is. So it's gonna be toxic and radioactive right out of the gate. But can they break through that? Are there enough people at this point who are awake who are going to go, we see what Fox News is doing, we see what Ted Cruz is doing, we see what these guys are doing, and we don't want to be a part of the old guard party anymore?
Yes, I do. And I think the biggest factor will be the boomers in that moment.
Yes.
Because
come on, boomers, we need you.
Well, the truth is, and this kind of came out when we did the boomers versus millennials debate. We actually agree on most things.
Yes.
We actually end up agreeing on most things. It's maybe a direction of how we get there or the proper vehicle of getting there. But at the end of the day, policy-wise, we end up agreeing on a lot of stuff, except maybe the foreign policy. I imagine a lot of these boomers, if they see kind of a new anti-establishment right form and they hear the messaging, I think they're going to like it. I mean, I like to use my dad as an example. Me and my dad love talking politics. I wouldn't say he's the stereotypical boomer conservative, but, he is a boomer. He's been independent. But, throughout, I've kind of seen him. It's like at first he didn't like Trump and he voted for Trump. At first, maybe he thought I was kind of crazy with my stuff. Now, at times he sounds crazier than I do. So I actually think the boomers do love the country. I think the boomers still have good political instincts when they can get the information to make a good decision. So I anticipate that's going to be the big switch. First, you have to bring on the left. The first challenge of the third party, Kent, Carlson, however they end up doing it, the first challenge is going to be, can you bring on the left? The fact that they've already reached out to the Young Turks tells me they've already thought of this. They've already had enough of a formulation here that they realize this doesn't work unless we bring on people from the left. So let's go to the Young Turks. They have a big audience. They're anti-establishment. Maybe there's an avenue there. Okay, we've got some interest from the left. That's when now all of a sudden you're going to see the Fox News go into overdrive. You're going to see the Dennis Pragers. You're going to see the Mark Levins. You're going to see the Sean Hannitys. That's when they're going to go into overdrive to protect their vehicle of power, the Republican Party. I don't think it's going to work. I think people have seen enough of it, especially if Trump doesn't deliver at the end of the day. If Trump gets out of office and there are no deep state arrests, there are no mass deportations, if he fails to deliver on the campaign promises, I think the Republicans lose a lot of boomers right there. And I think the boomers will look for something that is different, just like with Trump. I think they will look for something different. So I do think that there is a path. It's going to be who's willing to bankroll it, who is willing to cut the checks. Musk is the obvious candidate, but Musk, a lot of government contracts. You're playing, that's heavy ball. A lot of government contracts. You know what they're going to do? They're going to call him a Nazi. They're going to send people out to destroy his cars, all of this stuff. Maybe it doesn't work if it's not the left. I don't know. But yeah, I do think that we're going to see this. I think that this is the inevitable next evolution of American politics. I think it happens very rapidly after the midterms.
Well, and the final thought on this topic, and the boomers, I'll say too, because again, a lot of my audience is older people. I would hope that at the very least, if this new movement breaks out and people are talking about it, there needs to be at least a moment of reflection, I think, from the older generation. Why is this happening? Because you can't have it both ways. The majority of boomers that I talk to say, I just want to leave a country to my children and my grandchildren that provides them opportunity like I had. Well, if your children and your grandchildren are saying, we're rejecting your vision for the country, we have an entirely different vision at this point. We want something different. We want something better. I don't think you can dig in your heels and say, no, before I leave this planet, I want to leave you a country that's my vision of the country that's totally opposite of what you want. I think you have to start asking yourself, why do these younger people want something completely different than what you've supported all this time? And be open to that. That's my hope for the boomers.
Well, as long as they don't run on a communist platform, I don't think it will be too difficult to bring the boomers on. I really don't. Yeah. I think right now it's a little more difficult. They're still kind of caught in the left-right paradigm, establishment politics, and they still have faith in Trump. But I think that will wane. I think that will fade. I think most of them will probably even join a third party. I do.
Oh, God. I hope you're right. I just think you're being a little optimistic because
maybe.
I mean, even right now, it's a lot of them are repeating you've been brainwashed by Tucker and Megyn Kelly, and it's like it's only going to get 1,000 times worse. Owen Shroyer, thanks for everything that you've done for our country, for our movement.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for being a friend, and honestly, thanks for being I think a leader right now when people need a voice of dissent and somewhere to look. People who feel like they know that something's not quite right. I think you've been a very good voice right now.
Well, you know what I think?
What do you think?
I think our run is just beginning.
You do?
That's what I think.
I do too. I actually really do. Thanks, Owen.
Yep.
Appreciate it.